inquiry. And as usual, could I ask that all phones and other devices be set to silent? So, according to our timetable, we're hoping today to complete Mr Robb's evidence and to take the evidence of Ms Denyer. Any points that anyone needs to discuss before we start?
Sir, just on the question of progress, I would hope and expect that we would finish Historic Scotland today, and I would also hope and expect that we would have an opportunity to move on to one or other, possibly even both of the witnesses from AHSS, Mr Lowry and Mr Drummond.
Does that suit AHSS? Are they both available today, Ms Coburn?
Short answer is no, sir. It was agreed last week they were programmed for Wednesday. Mr Drummond is in Kilmarnock. Mr Lowry has rearranged his teaching commitments and they're not available until tomorrow as planned.
Okay. It sounds then, Mr Steele, as if we might have a break this afternoon.
So, indeed, if we have to, we have to. I just wonder if there's any possibility of rearranging that. It may not be possible. It would seem unfortunate to waste time this afternoon, but...
You're right, although we are on timetable, and I think we did agree, as Ms Coburn says, that those witnesses wouldn't be taken until Wednesday this week. Indeed, I discussed that with Mr Ron yesterday afternoon. It would have been helpful if Mr Steele could have made that clear yesterday, because we could have tried to have accommodated it. Obviously, we would have had to take the witnesses out of order. But the only other point that I would like to make about that, sir, is that... it doesn't matter, actually. I'll just okay.
wait and see what
it sounds like that's not a possibility, so we'll stick to timetable if we can finish the HES witnesses today. Mr Run's wondering whether there's anyone else that could be taken out of order, just to use some time this afternoon.
Not without me consulting with them. Mr Steele has not contacted me to give me any advance notice. I'm not prepared to make a change on the hoof.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, any other points? No. Mr Steele.
Thank you, sir. Mr Robb, good morning.
Good morning.
Mr Robb, can I just start with a couple of relatively small... yesterday, I think you indicated in relation to the Registers project that there had been an application to delist. Did I understand that correctly?
No, it was a discussion we had on site with Mr Wright.
So can we agree that there was no delisting there, but the matter proceeded in the same way as this is proceeding?
There was no delisting request in the end.
Was there, in relation to the Registers process, was there any suggestion of a call-in from HES?
There was an objection on the list of building consent.
Well, was there any discussion or suggestion of a call-in?
I think you'd have to give me the timing for that. I think the call-in procedure was when we were Historic Scotland. It's a slightly different procedure now. We've become Historic Environment Scotland.
Whichever it was there any suggestion of a call-in?
Well, we did object to the schemes, and then we've negotiated a slightly different element to the list of building consent, and in the end we agreed to proceed and withdrew our objection.
And has there been any suggestion of a call-in in relation to the current applications/appeals?
I don't quite understand what you mean by a call-in. They have been taken by Scottish ministers for the decision.
Yes. The reason I ask you is because the witness from the Council referred to potential call-in in relation to these applications. That was the main planning witness, Ms Parks. You may recollect that, and I just wondered if you had any knowledge about that, Mr Robb.
I don't think it's a phrase we use anymore. What happens is we have objected to the applications, and Scottish ministers have asked for them to be considered by themselves.
So, insofar as Ms Parks did refer to a call-in, do you know what that related to?
I'm afraid I don't.
Thank you. Can we please go to the plans that you were so keen to take me to yesterday? Plan 121. This was in relation to a point that you're obviously very keen to get across, that you suggested, notwithstanding you're not a structural engineer, that there would require to be demolition. Do you remember that, Mr. Robb?
I do.
And you're not, of course, a structural engineer, and nor an engineer, nor are you an architect. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And do you think it possible that these plans have been drawn up by a suitably qualified architect who has taken appropriate engineering advice? Do you think that's possible?
I think it's probable.
Do you think it's certain?
I think it's certain, yes.
Thank you. Now, one fact that you omitted to tell us about yesterday is that the building line that we propose in drawing 121 is precisely consistent with the building line of the existing building. Is that correct? Firstly, is it factually accurate? And is it also correct that you omitted to tell us about that?
I don't quite understand the question, sorry.
Oh, sorry, that's yet another of my errors, clearly, Mr. Robb. Could we look at the plan, please?
Which plan?
121.
121. I've got it in front of me.
Do we see that the building line of our proposed building is precisely in line with the existing building line of the existing building?
The luncheon block.
That's the one.
Yes.
And did you mention that yesterday?
I did in connection with it being attached to or obscuring the majority of that retaining wall, yes.
But did you mention yesterday that our building line was the same as the lunch block?
I think that would have been implied by me saying that the luncheon block occupied the same position adjacent to the wall.
And do you have any engineering advice that tells you that that demolition of that wall will be required? Or is this mere speculation by yourself, Mr. Robb?
I think it would be a professional opinion, and if you asked, you could perhaps ask Mr. Narrow, who's appearing next week, what his opinion would be. But I think it would be very difficult. The building that's there at the moment was a very temporary building, I think, put up either side of the war. It won't have deep foundations. I think the point I was trying to make yesterday is you're putting in a sub-basement level, which would involve quite a great degree of excavation across the site. And as I mentioned, if you look at the section on the other side, it is deeper in part as well. I think, in my professional opinion, from knowing sort of in over 25 years of dealing with applications, I would have thought that would be impossible to deliver that without the wall being removed. That was the only point I was trying to make. Yes, well,
we well understood precisely what point you were trying to make, Mr. Robb. If the professional advice that I have got is that building can be built without demolition of the retaining wall, are you in a position to dispute that?
I'm not in a position to dispute it, but I would be very surprised.
And you agreed yesterday, I think, that the Trust are building hard up against the wall, and it would be extremely likely that they would require to demolish that wall. Is that correct? Was that your position yesterday?
I think there would be some degree of reconstruction, but again, it's difficult to answer for their engineer would be the best person to speak to about that.
Is it also correct that you did not mention yesterday our other scheme in this regard? Is that correct, Mr. Robb?
Sorry, your other scheme?
Well, there are two schemes before the inquiry for consideration. Is that correct?
Yes.
And you did not mention, in relation to this retaining wall, the second scheme?
I was using it as an example of the fact that you were building a sub-basement in that level, in that area, which would affect the boundary wall.
Well, just to close off this issue, do you agree that the second scheme, the 2017 scheme, the building is located even further away from the retaining wall, and whatever risk there may be would be significantly less?
Can you take me to the drawing? I've got them in front of me.
Drawing CD 239.
It appears to be slightly further away, yes.
Well, Mr. Robb, I understand the approach that you take, but you say it's slightly further away. Is in fact it not significantly further away?
I wouldn't say it was significantly further away, no.
What does it scale off at?
I've got my scale rule if you want me to check. It looks to be probably just over 2 metres.
Is there any possible reason to suggest that there will be a difficulty in relation to that proposal?
I would think it's always difficult when you're excavating to create a basement, even just in safe working conditions. I think that would be quite difficult to achieve that.
Could we look, please, at APP 53?
Sorry, Mr. Steele, could I just interrupt briefly? Mr. Robb, just so that we're clear on this, in terms of the comparison of Scheme 1 with the Trust proposal, are you saying that they would have or would result in the same level of risk for the southern retaining wall, or are you saying one brings with it higher risk than the other?
I think they would both be similar.
Similar.
Digging a basement is riskier, but I think if the Trust scheme are building against the wall, that would create its own issues.
Okay, thanks for that.
Thank you, sir. And in relation to our second scheme, Mr. Robb, may I take it that clearly the risk is less because we are significantly, or at least further away? To what extent we can all use a scale rule to find out?
I think it's only about a metre away, so I'd say that the risks are fairly similar.
Well,
I don't think it's a significant distance.
I trust you're not suggesting it's only a metre away in total, are you?
No, a metre in addition to the first scheme.
And even if that is correct, that is a perfectly good distance away from the retaining wall, is it not?
I think, as I was saying yesterday, the retaining wall will be a rubble wall built without substantial foundation. So I think any work in the vicinity of it will cause issues, that's just common sense.
Yes, so these are engineering issues which can be readily, if there's appropriate space, that is, readily engineered out, Mr. Robb. You know that perfectly well. We could pile with metal, we could pile with concrete, we could do all sorts of techniques, we could hand dig it. Hit and miss could be employed in order to ensure that the risk, if not eliminated, is minimised.
I would say that would be an option when you were digging near to the Hamilton building, but I doubt that would be undertaken for a retaining wall.
If we wish to retain the retaining wall, that could be undertaken, and these techniques are perfectly well known and understood, are they not?
Yes.
And if employed, would, so far as we are concerned, preserve the retaining wall, if these techniques are employed? I
think it would be very difficult, but there always seems to be some way forward with engineering if you are prepared to put in the work and the money to do it.
If you're prepared to do the necessary work, there's no reason why we couldn't retain the retaining wall given the space we have available.
I would still say it was unlikely, in my professional opinion.
Let's look at APP 350, APP 53, if we may. And figure 7. Now, you say you'll have seen this before and read it before, I assume,
yes.
Mr. Robb, so you're familiar with it, so I can take it quickly. The viewpoint is established in the way set out there, is that correct?
The lines on the drawing.
Well, the wording describes it.
Yes.
And from that viewpoint, it is possible to see the entire northern facade, is it not?
From the top, yes, it would appear you could see most of the northern facade.
And can we agree that that reflects how Hamilton intended his building to be seen at the point of arrival?
Well, as I explained in great detail in my rebuttal recognition yesterday, my view is that Hamilton designed the western facade of the building to be visible on the western approaches, and indeed the western facade of the temple in the centre, rather than the northern elevation.
And what would one see from the viewpoint identified in Figure 7?
I think you would see the entire west elevation as Hamilton intended.
So can I just May I just repeat the question to you again, Mr. Robb, because I don't think we're in any disagreement. This indicates and reflects how Hamilton intended his building to be seen at the point of arrival. Is that not fair?
Yes, it's a view in front of the entrance gates. So I would agree that that view is what he expected to see. But what I was trying to say yesterday is that in terms of how he has designed the building, he has put both the architectural, the finest architectural elements and the stonework treatments on the western facade and the western facade of the temple. So I believe that that's what he intended to be visible, or most visible.
Mr. Robb, I don't think we're in disagreement about this, and is the short answer to my question yes?
The short answer to what can be seen from this viewpoint?
No, let me put the question to you for the third time, and if you can answer it by a yes or no answer, it would allow progress to be made. Do you agree that this reflects how Hamilton intended his building to be seen at the point of arrival?
Yes, I think that all these parts of the building would be visible.
Could we look, please, at our document CD 197, and this is in relation to listing. Do you have that, Mr. Robb?
I do, yes.
Yeah. And can we agree that there can be no doubt that the retaining walls, some of which we've talked about this morning, some of which we talked about yesterday, are explicitly mentioned and listed?
Do you have a page reference?
Well, actually, can I draw your attention to the heading of the listing, which might give some assistance?
I've got CD 197, the whole document. Do you want me to go to the list description?
I'm sorry, did I not take you to that? It's the list description that is at the back in the appendices at page 106.
Yes, I have it here.
So can we agree briefly that there is no doubt that the retaining oblique boundary walls are explicitly listed? It's not merely by matter of curtilage, as may have been suggested, and we thought you may have suggested that yesterday, but we weren't clear. But for the avoidance of doubt, the walls are explicitly mentioned and are quite clearly listed in their own right.
Yes, alongside the lodge and the gymnasium block, they are specifically listed.
And if we turn the page, under the heading retaining walls, we find more detail of that and descriptions and the likes of the retaining walls.
Yes.
So, beyond any doubt, the retaining walls are A-listed in their own right.
Yes, that's what we have intended when we have written the list description.
Now, could we move, please, to another topic, Mr. Robb? CD 757. And this is the report in relation to the Trust's proposal.
I have that.
Now, firstly, do I see, if I look at pages 76 onwards, that Historic HES made two separate responses to consultation responses to the application?
Yes.
And can we agree that the terms of each are slightly different in a way that we'll look at shortly?
I think there were different stages in the procedure, but yes, we can look at them.
Now, I'm just going to take matters fairly broadly at the moment, but would it be fair to say that in the consultation response, Mr. Robb, HES expressed some concerns, although not exactly an objection at that stage.
Yes.
This is the first response.
Yes, we did.
And in particular, if we look at page 77, concern was expressed about buildings to the north or rear of the Hamilton building.
Yes.
Again, I'm going to get into the detail later. I'm just trying to get the broad headings at the moment. And secondly, possibly more importantly, a concern was expressed about the works to be undertaken underneath the portico.
Yes, these were the two major elements we identified, along with a few other listed building issues.
And I think you did object, though, in relation to more detailed work in relation to the glass floor of the portico. Is that correct?
We didn't object. We have 3 letters that we can write as Historic Environment Scotland. One is a no comments, one is a comments, and one is an object. The comments letter is attempting. It's saying we're not objecting to this, but there are elements that we feel could benefit the proposals by being addressed.
And there were smaller issues, apart from the 2 main issues which I'm just about to look at. There were smaller issues in terms of size, which you were obviously extremely concerned about, namely the works to the portico, and that appears at page 80 of 97, and the treatment of the floor and the glass and so on and so forth.
Yes, there were also other issues, such as the replacement of cast iron columns in the assembly hall with console brackets, which I think was an attempt to... That's
been dealt with by conditions, I think.
It has been dealt with by conditions, but I think yes, we raised a few issues, some of which have been dealt with.
Now, if I can go back to the first issue then, that is buildings to the north of the main Hamilton building. Did you confirm, by which I mean, was this your personal consultation response?
It was one of my colleagues, but I'm perfectly aware of
so when I say you, I mean either you personally or HES?
HES, yes.
Right. Was concern expressed about the sensitivity of that area to change? And that's at page 77, the top 3 and 4 lines.
Yes.
Was it recognised that that area was highly significant?
I think, yes, we have said it's highly significant.
And can we also agree that any development which interferes with that highly significant sensitive area, it would be better to avoid it, if possible?
I think certainly in pre-application discussions we suggested that that there would be other options.
Now, the paragraph ends this way: there is clear visual progression of sequences from the gate piers and gates at Regent Road to the gate lodge, moving to the main building where the rear elevation slowly reveals itself. Now, is that not the point that Mr. Wright has been making about the main building and the rear elevation slowly revealing itself?
I'm not sure it is. I think the point that's been made is that there was a specific intent for the rear elevation of the temple building in the centre to be visible from the western approaches, which I think we have always seen as a secondary consideration. I think it's really the way that the building is designed, with its with a central temple and 2 pavilions either side. So there is a degree of movement in the rear elevation. So I think what we're saying that the building slowly reveals itself because you're going round corners where the doors are. There's a certain degree of movement there.
And was it also your professional opinion that the proposed new building would prevent the north facade being read coherently with the octagonal pavilions introducing an uncharacteristic series of interlocking spaces?
I think we did feel that perhaps didn't allow a full view of that elevation in the same way, but I think we in the end we balanced that up against the fact that the main building was not being affected in any way.
Well, just a stage at a time, Mr. Robb, because what I've put to you is the precise wording of your consultation response, is it not?
Yes.
And is that not almost precisely the position adopted by Mr. Taverner and indeed Mr. Wright in relation to the location of those buildings there?
I have noted that they have mentioned this, yes.
So does it come to this, in relation to these buildings, in these locations, or at this location being north of the north facade, the view of Historic Environment Scotland and my witnesses, particularly Mr. Taverner and Mr. Wright, are virtually identical?
No, I wouldn't agree with that. We certainly in pre-application discussions, we recommended, and I believe the Council did as well in their, I think, 7 Principles document, that the best place for new development would be to the very rear of the site, against the retaining wall. So really we are saying that that is an area that would allow, as long as a breathing space was allowed between that and the new building, that was a position where development could be accommodated. And certainly in the bidding process there were some schemes that were filling in that area, which we weren't particularly keen on, but we did feel that that was an area that could have limited, and by limited we mean sort of single-storey or 1.5-storey development. Should it be able to make the entire scheme viable?
What do you tell us is meant by this proposed new building would prevent the north facade being read coherently? Is that a compliment, or is that a factor against it?
It would be a factor against it. I think what we're saying is that you would experience the building slightly differently. Well,
you say slightly differently. It would be entirely differently, would it not, Mr. Robb?
Well, again, I think we have to take a balanced view in the fact that the building itself is not being altered at all, and that is something that we had to balance.
Could you look, please, at Mr. Taverner's main report?
Is it his inquiry statement?
Indeed. Which is APP 45.
I have it.
If we go to page 63, do you agree that he has there accurately reflected the Trust's proposals for this area, which you describe as sensitive to change and highly significant?
Well, if these are images from Richard Murphy Architects, so I would agree that they probably do reflect what's intended.
And does the built development extend from hard up against the north retaining wall, firstly?
It would appear so, yes.
And does some of the built development actually go further south than the most northerly point of the Hamilton building?
There does appear to be an interlocking.
Because the octagonal buildings actually go sufficiently far south to go further south than the north part of the Hamilton building. Is that correct?
I would have to look at the drawing.
Well, just look at page 63. Does that not tend to give you an answer?
I think we always tend to look at the drawings because that's what is intended to be built.
Right, well, look at the drawing then, if there's any dispute about it. And while you're looking for it, Mr. Robb, could you consider this? Would it be fair to describe the area to the north of the Hamilton building, between that and the retaining wall, as being almost entirely developed as a result of these proposals?
Sorry, with the first point, yes, there does seem to be a small overlap. They do tend to go further south than the northern facade of the temple. It doesn't appear to be a great distance.
Well, you were pretty good at distances earlier when it was a point against us, Mr. Robb. So can you just guesstimate how many metres it might be?
I would say it looks more like 30 centimetres.
30 centimetres.
It would appear so, yes.
Let me just ask you that again. In relation to the northern part of the main temple, do you say that the octagonal buildings only go 30 centimetres south of that, if one draws that as the building line?
Yes, I would say about that.
What scale are you using? What's the scale?
Well, I'm guessing from the drawings in terms of the building elements. I think the visualizations may do it an injustice. If the drawing that's CD 708, there doesn't appear to be a great overlap.
Well, let's look at page 62, which shows the floor plan. Is it not pretty obvious that the octagonal buildings go to the further south than the main temple building?
I think they, just as I've just said, I think they do, but it's a very minimal distance.
And what about the classroom building to the east? Is that further south than the building line?
Yes. But it retains the grass banking on the east side to Thomas Hamilton's building.
And how far south does that go in relation to the building line established by the main temple?
The eastern extension. Well, it goes to the retaining wall we were talking about earlier.
No. If I ask you to take a ruler across the building line of the main temple, how far south of that does the teaching block go?
Well, it covers the majority of that area to the east.
Well, in truth, it covers almost all the area to the east, does it not?
At some level, yes. But at quite a low level.
It, if you like, surrounds the main Hamilton building on the north side and the east side. Is that not correct?
It introduces a new building on the east side, but the main issue that we've had is the grass banking to the side of the Hamilton building, and indeed the railings, I believe, will be reused. So it retains a certain degree of setting to the Hamilton building. You will still be able to appreciate that elevation, both from Regent Road and both from within the site as well. And the link is very minimal at lower ground level only. So you would still be able to walk into the site and view the eastern facade of the Hamilton building. It gives it enough breathing space for it still to be legible and visible.
Yeah. To walk into the site from west to east, you need to do 2 or is it 3 S-bends to get in a general easterly direction, don't you?
Yes, you would. It's slightly more convoluted than before.
Well, come on, Mr. Rob, let's be fair about this. Slightly more convoluted. It's entirely different. We have to turn first right, then left, then right, then left to get straight ahead to the teaching block, don't we?
To the entrance of the teaching block. Yes, I mean, it is. I'd use the word convoluted.
It's an entirely different arrangement. And this development is sited on an area of ground that you describe as sensitive to change and highly significant. Is that factually accurate?
Yes.
Now, as I had you noted yesterday, just in relation to this building, you said that the north is best appreciated from the viewing platform which was on Carlton Hill Road. Did I note you correctly?
I think from the beginning we felt that the north elevation was best appreciated from within the site as you experience it. and also from this the approach on Colton to Colton Hill.
So what was your position yesterday in relation to the ability to view from Carlton Hill Road viewing platform? That is the flat section.
Well, I believe that was another way to view the north elevation of the Hamilton building.
Would you like to describe, please, fairly and reasonably, what will be the impact on the views from that viewing platform if this building is built?
They vary, really, depending on the configuration of buildings below, but you'll still be able to appreciate the building.
Well, Mr. Rob, let me ask you to position yourself due north on the viewing platform of one or other of the octagonal structures. What view would you get of the north facade?
I think it would probably be worth looking at a section at this point. That will probably give us the best view.
Well, if you wish to do that, I don't think the answer will be any different, but please do so.
I'm just trying to find the best section to look at. It's probably 713, CD 713.
Now, do you have that section in front of you?
I do.
Can you tell me, please, what is the height AOD of the octagonal buildings?
Well, it's 84 at the top of the glazed pavilions, but I think that's...
They've been reduced by a metre or two, haven't they?
They have, yes.
Right, so let's just try and be fair and reasonable about this, Mr. Rob, and take that down to, say, 82 metres. So what obstruction, if any, do you say that there will be if you're standing due north on the viewing platform, due north of either of these octagonal buildings?
The view will be fairly affected. I think
fairly affected. Would you like to give us a little bit more precision than that, Mr. Rob?
I think it would be unlikely to get a view off the rear of the building at that point. But if you move, but the temple section...
I'm just taking a stage at a time, Mr. Rob. Can we agree that at that point, or those 2 points, the view would be obliterated or wiped out?
I think it would be difficult to have a south-facing view of the building.
Well, it would be impossible, wouldn't it?
Well, I think you could get views of the end pavilions if you looked to the side. If you were looking straight ahead, yes, you would not be able to see.
Well, let's just assume you're looking straight ahead and you're not in stilts, Mr. Rob. There would be no meaningful view at all, would they? The view would be obliterated.
Not from that very specific position, but if you walked a few more steps upwards, then your view of the building would be revealed again.
And can you tell me what the position would be if you were in between the 2 octagonal buildings?
You would see the majority of the building from between the 2 octagonal pavilions.
Would the view be impacted at all?
I think it's possible you may not see the base of the building in some situations. But
you have the section in front of you, Mr. Rob. What is the position? What is the viewing height of the platform in between the 2 octagonal buildings?
It's 79 metres, 0.05 metres.
And the octagonal buildings, even allowing for the lantern reduction, are at 82. And what is the height of the building in between?
I don't have a height for that on this drawing.
Well, can we agree this? We can allow others to look at the detail of it if you don't have it there, Mr. Robb. But can we agree this, that the view from in between the two lanterns on that viewing platform will also be very significantly altered as well?
I wouldn't say significantly altered. I would agree that it would be significantly altered when you were you to be directly behind the pavilions on the access road. But between, I think there would be a fair view. You would get a fair appreciation of the building. Perhaps the base of it might be obscured.
If you're in between, you would not be able to see. Let me put you in the exact midpoint then, if we could, just as an example, a midpoint in between the octagonal structures. If I were standing there, or if you were standing there, we would not be able to see the eastern wing of the main Hamilton building. Is that accurate?
From the midpoint in front of the temple?
Yes.
It may be difficult to see it, yes.
Well, how could we see it? Because we'd be looking straight into one of the octagonal structures if we were looking towards the eastern part of the main Hamilton building. Is that not accurate?
It would appear so, yes.
Yeah. So you couldn't see it at all, Mr. Robb, as you perfectly well know. Is that not fair?
I think it is fair. You would not be able to appreciate it from that midpoint.
Likewise, if I wanted to look at the west wing of the main Hamilton building, I wouldn't be able to see that either.
From that central position, yes. But then you would have an unobstructed view of it as you walked up the road from the west.
Where would you have the unobstructed view if you walked from the west to the east?
Well, from the whole walk up the Calton Hill access road, you would be able to appreciate the western facade of the Hamilton building.
Does that assume you're walking up the hill backwards, Mr. Robb?
No.
No. Because if you're walking up the hill west to east, by the time you can actually see this, you're past the building and your view is in front of you elsewhere, isn't it?
I don't quite understand. I think it's the viewpoint of the elderly solicitor that was very well used in the last few weeks. I think it's from that viewpoint you would be able to see the entire west elevation of the Hamilton building and its northern elevation of the Western Pavilion.
Are you serious, Mr. Robb? Is that a serious proposition?
Yes, we might be at cross purposes here. I think that would be fairly obvious that you would see that. There would be no obstruction in your way to see that.
And where do you think the elderly solicitor, as he's become called, where do you think he was?
Well, he was at ground level. I'm talking about from the access road to Calton Hill.
Yes, I'm asking you about the Calton Hill Road,
yes,
which is what we've been talking about for the last several minutes.
That's what I'm aware of, yes.
Yeah. So what has the elderly solicitor location got to do with it? Because he is actually in a position probably overbuilt by the Murphy design and lanterns, is he not?
Well, it's CD270, if you want to have a look at that. Sorry, it's not 270. (272). Thank you. From the view that this is taken from, which appears to be on the railings of the Calton Hill, you would be able to see the entirety of Hamilton's western facade of the building, and most of the and quite a good deal of the northern facade at this point.
And the elderly solicitor, to which you're referring, he is on the approach to the hotel, no doubt for his lunch. Is that right?
I think it was a drink he was after from, but.
Well, sounds like Mr. Innes to me.
I didn't say that.
Now, but the fact of the matter is this, that the location from which the elderly solicitor is at this time would be overbuilt by the building proposed by Murphy, would it not?
No, it wouldn't.
How far away from it would he be?
Is there a diagram or viewpoint that would help us with this?
If you could go back to...
272, sir, is the...
Yes, I mean one that shows the trust proposal.
CD 708, sir.
Thanks.
At the point where the solicitor is, he would be able to view the entire western facade of the building, which would have retained its banked enclosure and railings. He would also be able to see the northern facade of the western pavilion, and it's actually quite further down before you get to the first of the Murphy octagons.
Well, is that right, Mr.
Yes.
Rob? Well, just bear with me a minute. The first octagon actually is inserted between the west wing and the main temple building, isn't it?
Yes.
And it overlaps in a direction, a southerly direction, with the building line of the temple.
But that from that viewpoint, there would be no... it's far from that viewpoint. If we're looking at 272, that viewpoint is showing a view from the Colton Hill access road to far to the west of the point where the octagon comes in.
Yeah. Well, I thought you were talking about the view, what the solicitor would see. He would see the main octagonal building, and he would see pretty little, very little of the northern facade, wouldn't he? Because his view would be interrupted.
Well, I think we were talking about the viewpoint 272, which is from the Colton Hill access road. I thought you were asking me about the views from the Colton Hill access road.
Yes. Let me return to the Colton Hill access road. From this point, the octagonal building would obscure the view to the temple and the northern facade of the temple, wouldn't it?
I think you may get some view of the temple from there.
Now, Mr. Rob, just think about that answer. The octagonal building is inserted in between the west wing and the temple and overlaps.
Sorry, you would get a view of the western facade of the temple.
Well, can I put my question to you again? You would get no view of the northern elevation of the temple, nor of the eastern wing, and probably none of the temple at all.
From the viewpoint 272, you would see the top of the temple. From a ground floor level, I accept your view would be. It would be difficult to see. You wouldn't see the northern facade of the temple.
Sorry, you would or wouldn't?
Wouldn't.
No, you wouldn't. And if we return to where I was taking you earlier, before I was diverted into this. If one is going up Carlton Hill Road from west to east, after you pass the octagonal buildings, your view is focused in front of you, and you've already passed the building, by which I mean the Hamilton building.
Sorry, I don't quite understand. I think we were discussing a point at the between the octagonal pavilions on the access road. I think the point that a few people were making last week about the horizontal section of that road was to take in the rear of the temple block.
Right. Well, let me try, if I may, to bring this particular topic to a conclusion, Mr. Robb. Is it not perfectly obvious that as between two schemes, one of which imposes buildings in the way that we've looked at in the Murphy scheme, in this highly significant and sensitive site, with all of the effects that we've talked about, all the implications we've talked about, and another scheme that has no such development in that area, the balance of advantage in that regard, in relation to that issue, quite quite clearly favours the latter scheme.
In terms of keeping the retaining wall free and keeping that area behind the Hamilton building, yes, your scheme is preferable, but it does. We've balanced it up against the harms that your scheme causes to other parts of the elevation. I'm
just trying to take this a stage at a time. As a simple answer to my simple question, the answer is yes, it favours our scheme. Sorry.
Well, I think it's always difficult to answer
regard.
Simple questions. In this specific regard, yes, but even in between your schemes, the second scheme sets the hotel wings further back, so your views of the northern elevation would be curtailed by that.
Mr. Robb, I understand your enthusiasm for your position, but can we not agree a simple proposition that in relation to this highly significant and sensitive area of ground, there really is no competition? Our scheme wins hands down, does it not?
I would say that it is it's beneficial in that very particular regard.
Thank you. Right. Let's move on, if we can, then, to see if we can reach agreement about something else. HES and you expressed significant concern about the undermining or mining or alterations underneath and close to the portico. Is that so?
We expressed concern about that, yes.
And you expressed concern in several different ways and several different places. Could we look, please, at page 79?
I have it.
Was it your professional opinion, and I assume it still does remain your professional opinion, that the extent of historic fabric proposed for removal is of concern?
Yes.
Thank you. Was there concern expressed about the expansive width supported by a prominent steel beam being a radical architectural and structural treatment? Was that a further concern you expressed?
Yes.
Did you also express concern about the large undercroft to be created?
I think we expressed concern about the structures in that area. Having been on site more recently, I think I would probably qualify that by saying that quite a lot of that structure has already been altered by the PSA works.
Now, Mr. Robb, I'll take you to the detail of that just in a moment. But insofar as what you said at the time, did you express concern about the considerable loss of many of Hamilton's original and characterful network of passages and stone vaulting?
Yes, that's what we said.
And they remain in situ, notwithstanding what the PSA may or may not have done. Is that correct?
Yes, so there is still a degree of vaulted space down there, which we saw on the site visit.
The original vaulted space remains, does it not?
Yes, although it has been significantly altered by the PSA.
Well, it's just nothing in comparison with what is proposed now, isn't it?
That's true, but I would agree with what Mr. Wright said at the end of his cross-examination. It is an area of secondary importance to the building.
Did you also express concern about the potential for further damage being caused to the building as a result of this work?
I think from the discussions we've had in the last week, we would always rely on schemes that have major structural intervention to go through the due process, if you like, to go through building control, even to have specific conditions put on. As Mr. Innes pointed out, it's very similar to the works that were undertaken by Gareth Hoskins Architects for the National Museum of Scotland in Chambers Street. They're, I think, 10-metre wide openings at basement level above a Category A listed facade. So I don't think we have any doubt that it can be done. I think that was just expressing we would assume that everything is done according to the processes you would normally expect.
Let's, if we may, see what you actually said. In regard to the methodology and works to excavate a significant amount of ground, including bedrock, the applicant will need to convince your council that this structural work can be carried out without causing damage to the building. These were your words, is that so?
Absolutely, and that's, I presume, why the council, well, of course, looking at their own skills within the building, have put conditions on to cover that.
And can we agree that if there was damage at this general location of the portico or southern facade, that would be more than unfortunate?
Yes, obviously, we would hope that these works can be undertaken without any damage. I don't think they would go ahead if there was any real issue with damage being caused.
There is always risk, and you as a surveyor know that. You were very keen to tell us about the risk when we were working within a couple of metres of a retaining wall, and this is a completely different order of magnitude of risk, surely, Mr. Robb.
I would agree, and I think there would be a different magnitude of care adopted towards this rather than for a retaining wall.
Well, can we agree that it is undesirable to be removing so much of this original Hamilton fabric?
I would agree that it's undesirable.
Can we agree it's highly undesirable?
I would say we would have to balance it up in terms of how important that fabric is in the building. And again, Mr. Wright described it as of secondary importance, and I would agree with that.
Well, that may be, but it is still... Sorry, I thought you'd finished.
Well, it's there to create the height of the temple that Hamilton wished to provide on the site. So it's an artificial raising of the building. Any original fabric has to be treated with some care. So yes, we could say we would have concerns with it, but again, in balancing it up against the overall scheme, we considered it wasn't.
I realise that, but can we quantify, if we may, Mr. Robb, would you be content to leave it this way, that these are significant issues
I think they
which are adverse to the proposal?
I would say that these elements are adverse, but we would expect them to be treated within the due process of taking forward an application.
And it would be much better if there was no such removal of the original fabric, wouldn't it?
I think we would always ask for original fabric to be kept as far as possible.
So could I ask you please to look at page 59 of Mr. Taverner's report?
I see it.
And we there see the extent of the demolition and downtaking proposed by the Trust on the upper diagram, compared and contrasting with the Appeal Scheme 1 demolition drawing. Without hopefully going into too much detail, can we agree that they are of a significantly different order of magnitude?
I believe David Narrow felt that they involved similar amounts of demolition, but I can see from the drawing... I will ask
Mr. Narrow in due course. I'd like your professional opinion, Mr. Robb.
There is more demolition work.
And I will go into this in detail if we want, but is it not absolutely obvious that there's significantly more demolition being that in red in the top diagram than in the bottom one?
Well, it's drawn in red on the top diagram. In bold red, yes, I would say there is more demolition.
Well, let's avoid any misunderstanding.
Excuse me, sorry to interrupt, but there's a pattern's emerging, which is that Mr. Steele's not allowing the witness to finish his answers. And if he wants to qualify his answers, that's a matter for him, and he should be allowed to finish those answers.
That's right, although there was a degree of hesitation and Mr. Steele jumped in. So,
thank you, sir. I thought the witness had finished. Thank you.
No, I think the drawings show in bold, yes, that the walling being removed is substantial, but I think there's a degree of doubt on the two drawings suggested about how much demolition, how much underpinning would be required from the lower scheme. They have a few dotted lines there, but I presume that is all demolition in that case.
Well, let's just go to the main issue, Mr. Robb. So far as the area under or due north of the portico is concerned, the trust scheme proposes very significant downtaking or demolition, does it not?
There is certainly more downtaking than the Scheme 1 for the appellant.
It's significantly more, isn't it? Is that difficult to accept? It's significantly more.
In that specific area, yes, I can accept that.
And having regard to the concerns that you expressed earlier in your consultation response, is it not obvious that having regard to that factor, the balance of advantage quite clearly favours our proposal, because it would have less impact?
In that specific area, yes.
Thank you. And to put it in more detail, we would have significantly less impact, wouldn't we?
Well, there's still quite a lot of ground removal, rock removal in your scheme. It's maybe not shown up in this drawing to the best, to the fairest ability, but so I would it would be difficult to say significantly. I think in the under the portico area, yes, I would admit.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, in relation to the second scheme, is the position not even more favourable to our second scheme proposal?
There is less rock removal in the second scheme, yes.
And does the balance of advantage favour us even further in relation to the second scheme, because we would have even less impact than our first scheme in this particular area?
The second scheme is preferable in terms of rock removal than the second, yes.
And does it also follow, therefore, that our second scheme is significantly preferable to the trust scheme in this regard?
In the regard of removing fabric, yes, it is preferable, but only in this specific area. And I think we have to balance up. Interventions to the building can be physical interventions, but also interventions to the setting of the building. And I think it's the setting of the building that we have the major concerns with in your client scheme.
Sorry. On the question of subdivision, do you accept that we do not subdivide the building or the rooms as a result of our proposals to reinstate and reuse the building? And that is a preferable situation.
You do not subdivide, but neither does the music school scheme.
Well, Mr. Robb, we can play with words if we want, but do we restore the rooms to their original Hamilton intention?
The spatial quality of the room would be restored. In the two lower rooms in the second scheme, they will become kitchens, so I don't feel they would be restored to perhaps a layman's interpretation of the word restoration.
But they are restored physically to the original Hamilton intentions, is that not correct?
The spaces will be restored, yes.
And is the same true of the trust proposal?
They restore the majority of the spaces, but leave some of the PSA walling for classrooms.
So
they don't introduce additional subdivision.
So it may be a small point, but the balance of advantage favours us in that regard as well, doesn't it?
I think we would always like to see the original classrooms brought back. So yes, there would be a small beneficial in doing that.
Thank you. Could I ask you to, please, to go to your main report? And the section dealing with the assessment of the St Mary's Music School proposals against tests 3.47C.
Yes, I have that.
Could I ask you to go to paragraph 210? And do you there, in lines 3 and 4, find an advantage to the trust proposal by virtue of the fact it restores the open playground and reveals the rear boundary wall in this area?
Yes, we've always considered that the western playground is important in terms of the landscape setting of the building and the feeling of roost and herb that my colleague has mentioned. So we've always considered that restoring that approach to the building would be a major positive in any scheme, which is why we have been loath to see a large building in that area.
And as I understand it, one of the reasons for that is because it reveals the rear boundary wall.
I think I would say that was a secondary benefit. I think the restoring the original intention for Hamilton to have that area as an open playground is the major benefit.
And Hamilton, of course, intended the area west of that to be open as well, didn't he? That is the area where the Gate Lodge is.
He didn't design a gate lodge, but they became very common in Edinburgh schools.
Well, my question was a simple one, I hope, Mr. Robb. Hamilton also intended that area where the Gate Lodge is to be open as well,
yes,
did he not?
He designed a set of gates.
Thank you. Now, albeit it may be secondary, one of the benefits that you cite here is the revelation of the rear boundary wall.
Again, I would say that was a secondary benefit to the removal of the
Can
building.
Noting that you say it's a secondary benefit, it's still a benefit, but did you yesterday have a difficulty in agreeing that our revealing of the rear boundary wall was a benefit?
I don't think so. I think we were. I was saying that revealing the wall and in the area of the Belvedere is a benefit. Yes.
And the truth of the matter is, of course, that we will reveal the wall over its entire length. Do we not?
It will be revealed, but it will be very unlikely to be visible unless you're within the site.
And how are you going to see the rear boundary wall where the new classroom buildings are in the octagonal building? That's the problem, surely.
Do you mean the music skill scheme?
Of course.
Well, I would agree that parts of the rear wall will not be visible where the building is, but the Belvedere and a section of walling will be revealed in the eastern end of the site.
Now, insofar as the rear boundary wall is concerned, it may be obvious by now, Mr. Robb, but can we not agree that we will reveal and restore a significantly greater portion of it than the trust scheme?
More of the retaining wall will be revealed in your scheme, yes.
And we will reveal the entire Belvedere from top to bottom without any plant-associated equipment on top of it?
It would appear so, but again, the visibility of it will be severely curtailed apart from very minor views or very long views. The building, you're putting a building right in front of it in one occasion. And
a step at a time, Mr. Robb, so I can understand it. The facts of the matter is this, or are these, I should say, that we will reveal that Belvedere over its entire height, won't we?
Yes.
And we do not put any plant-related equipment on its roof?
No, it doesn't appear so.
And we do not use it as a vent stack, do we?
No.
Right. What's your professional opinion about the Belvedere having the plant-related equipment on its roof and being used as a vent stack and having windows put into it?
Well, firstly, we've like the gymnasium block, we've been calling this the Belvedere from the very beginning. But a Belvedere, I think, if we look in the dictionary definition, is a viewing platform. I think this building has never occupied that. I think it's probably a folly rather than anything else. I think there's a bit of a struggle to work out what exactly it was used for, rather than just an end stop to the retaining wall. But sorry, you were asking me what I felt about this.
I was asking you a question which had, with the greatest respect, nothing to do with the answer that you've just given, Mr. Robb. So perhaps can I try it again?
I was trying to go into deeper detail about the Belvedere because it has come up during this process.
Whether you want to call it a Belvedere or a folly matters not. What is your professional opinion about putting plant and equipment-related structures on top of that and using it as a vent stack?
Well, from the drawings, it does appear that 3 vents will be going up through the building, along with spiral staircase, and it does appear that there is some form of plant screening on the roof. I'm not quite sure why that would be required for three pipes. I think it would probably be something better to ask the architect himself. I think if we're looking at it in terms of this position that the Belvedere occupies at the moment, it has to be beneficial what's being done. Obviously, there's a little bit of doubt about what actually survives of the Belvedere because it's had a building against it for, well, since 1885. So I would imagine that will be an element of the scheme that will be looked at in more detail once it's revealed, and perhaps a condition could have been put in to do that.
Well, Mr. Robb, I'm terribly sorry. I clearly didn't put my question clearly enough to you. Can I try it again for the third time? What is your professional opinion about the Belvedere having plant-related equipment being put on top of it and being used as a vent stack? Is that appropriate? Now, if you don't understand the question, just please let me know.
I don't think it's inappropriate to have equipment within the building. I think the plant screen is rather unfortunate, but if we're looking at the difference between the Belvedere now and the Belvedere that would result from the music school schemes, it would be very beneficial because at the moment it's an ivy-covered structure which can't be seen at all.
So is the answer to my question asked for the third time that it would be unfortunate?
Elements of it would be unfortunate.
Thank you.
But not significantly so.
Can we agree that a proposal such as ours that has no such unfortunate elements would be preferred?
I think if a restoration of the building is proposed, we would, of course, prefer that.
Thank you. Now, I may not have to go to it, but do Simpson and Brown, in their report, which for reference is 691, a report that they did, a conservation plan, do they attach weight to the revealing of that northern retaining wall and the Belvedere? I can take you to the reference if you want, but I expect you'll be entirely familiar with that, Mr. Robb.
I would prefer to see it all the same.
691, page 71, at bottom, couple of paragraphs.
Well, they're saying it was unfortunate the gymnasium was built in front of it.
Indeed, so it's pretty obvious that they would like to see the wall and Belvedere / folly revealed, wouldn't they?
I think in doing that, it requires the demolition of the gymnasium building, which I think is unfortunate in its own right as a listed building. What they're saying there is that it was unfortunate that the board school built that building in front of the Belvedere.
But it's fair to suggest, is it not, that they would like to see the wall and Belvedere revealed?
That's not what it's saying, but if it says that somewhere else in the report, then I'm happy to accept that.
Now, Mr. Robb, can we go back to paragraph 210 of your main report, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bullet points down? You say this: the Hamilton building is retained virtually unaltered, and that's in relation to the Trust proposals.
Yes.
Is that a serious statement, or would you like to reflect on that and amend it now?
The only alterations are the entrance under the portico and the linking to the eastern extension at lower ground level.
And do you think it's fair to characterise the major structural intervention, I quote what you said only about 30 minutes ago, as being consistent with saying it's being retained virtually unaltered? Do you think that really is a fair representation of the position, Mr. Robb, or is this a significantly enhanced gloss?
I think in terms of the entire building, we've made a great deal in this. Well, I've made a great deal of this in the report. The fact that the building has not been extended or altered in almost 200 years of its history, due to the importance that was attached to it from a quite unusually early date. So I think in terms of the entire building, that really is the only intervention into the fabric, a single door opening on the eastern side and that opening on underneath the portico.
But that is a very significant, and in your own words, major structural intervention. How could you possibly fairly say it's been retained virtually unaltered in the face of what we know is the truth of the matter?
I'm saying that as a result in weighing up the entire scheme towards the building. It doesn't have any sort of openings to the rear elevation. It is, in terms of even a sort of percentage of alteration, it is virtually unaltered.
You don't think, with the benefit of hindsight, Mr. Robb, it might be better to qualify that sentence?
I could have qualified it by saying, apart from that feature,
except
but
for the major structural intervention underneath the portico. Would that be a fair way of dealing with it?
I could have said that, but I think what I'm saying is, on the balance of the entire building, that there are very few interventions to it.
In relation to the pavilions, you say they're being retained intact. Are there any alterations to the pavilions at all?
I think there was an alteration that has not been approved to one of them.
What was that alteration?
It was a link into the rear elevation of it.
And are you saying there are no other interventions in the pavilions at all?
Well, they'll be reused for different things. I think one of them is a bin store area at lower level. These are unused buildings at the moment. I don't think they will be harmed in any way.
Now, in the next bullet point, you say the music school scheme has no extensions to the north rear elevation of the Hamilton building, allowing Hamilton's masterpiece to remain unencumbered by additions. Do you think that really is a fair way of putting matters, given what we've just described about what actually is going to happen to the north of the building? Or is that a significant gloss, possibly even, some may think, a misrepresentation, Mr. Robb?
I think what I'm saying is the building itself is not being extended or altered. There will be new buildings against the retaining wall, but the building itself is retained without alteration.
And you say the Hamilton masterpiece will remain unencumbered by the additions. Well, that's factually inaccurate, isn't it? Because there will be additions to the north, and they will affect significantly the building.
I think when I say additions, I'm meaning actually additions to the building, rather than additions to the retaining wall.
So where do you deal with, in this list of detail, where do you deal with the disadvantage of the buildings to the north? Where are they listed?
They are mentioned early in the...
I'm referring to paragraph 210, where you give us the detail of the issues.
Yes. In writing this paragraph, it's not the same as our original consultation response, which I think is viewing the scheme in its entirety. What I'm trying to do here is respond to the reporters asking whether this scheme is of less impact than your client's scheme.
And you've clearly got a professional responsibility to put matters in a fair, even-handed way, haven't you?
Well, all our documents are out there. Our consultation letter for the original scheme is there, the two letters we wrote. We're not saying that we support, and I think my colleague mentioned this yesterday, our letter was intended to seek improvements to the scheme, but we didn't feel it raised issues of national significance so that we would object to it.
Can you please look at my question and consider it? Where in section 210 do we see any reference to the issues of the disadvantages that we've spent some time this morning agreeing about, of the building work to the north of the main building, lying between the main building and the northern retaining wall. Where do we see that reflected in paragraph 210?
I think it's earlier in the document that I've mentioned it.
Does that mean we can agree that it's not mentioned in 210? Which is said to give the detail of the issues.
It's to give the detail of some of the issues.
So can we agree, firstly, it's not mentioned in 210?
I'd have to read through it in its entirety. I thought...
And you state that the Hamilton building is retained virtually unaltered. You see, I just wondered, Mr. Robb, if, with the benefit of hindsight, you feel that you've put a fair representation at paragraph 210 of the issues in relation to the trust proposal, or whether they might be slightly skewed.
I think what I'm doing here is assessing why it has less impact rather than assessing the entirety of the scheme. That's what we did in our consultation response.
I do understand that,
That's
Mr.
what
Robb.
I believe we've been asked to look at paragraph HESP's paragraph 3.47C and to see whether this is indeed a scheme that causes less impact. So perhaps I have concentrated on elements where I feel there's been less impact rather than do what we did in the consultation responses in responding to the entirety of the scheme. Yes. But I think that's valid in that what we're actually being asked is why we consider that this scheme has less impact.
I understand that, Mr. Robb. But in order to establish whether it does or does not have less impact, one has to look fairly at what the impact actually is, does one not?
Yes, I think we've been quite specific in our views in our consultation response on what elements of the building, what elements of the scheme we find adverse or potentially adverse.
And where in, never mind in 210, where in the section under the heading St Mary's School proposals against HESP 3.47C do we see a listing of the disbenefits that we've agreed exist this morning in relation to the building to the north of the facade? Where is that?
Well, again, what I'm doing here is showing why we consider there is less impact.
Well, I understand that, but the question, Mr. Robb, is this. Where in this assessment do you identify the impacts that arise from the building to the north of the main Hamilton building, between that and the north retaining wall? Where are they mentioned and their disadvantages and impacts?
I mentioned it in paragraph 205.
Yes, and what do you say about that? Is that simply a factual description? And what I'm wanting to know, Mr. Robb, is where you assess the significant impacts that will arise from that building work. Where is that mentioned?
Well, we have mentioned that in our consultation response.
Where in this document, which is headed Assessment of the St Mary's School Proposals against HESP, where are these significant impacts mentioned?
Well, we've assessed it, again, as I say, against HESP's 3.47C rather than assessed it as an application overall. We have assessed the impact as opposed in terms of why we agree it has less impact than your
Mr. Robb, could you please just assist me? Where in this section dealing with HESP's headed Assessment of the St Mary's School Proposal have you listed the significant impacts that arise, which we've agreed about this morning, as a result of building in that sensitive location? Where?
I think they've been mentioned, but I haven't gone into detail about the negative impact of these. That is in the consultation response.
That's the first agreement. You haven't gone into the detail about it. Is that correct?
Yes.
Right. Where have you gone into the generality about it, suggesting that there is negative impact or adverse impact? Where is that even mentioned?
I haven't done that either. What I've done here is assess the impact.
So there are two major issues with the St Mary's School, the Trust proposal. One is building to the north. That is between the north of the Hamilton building and the north retaining wall. And you have failed to mention the impacts from that in this assessment. Is that correct?
I have not mentioned the impact.
And the second main intervention is that underneath the portico, and you describe the Hamilton building is retained virtually unaltered. Now, Mr Robb, I have to put this to you for your consideration. Do you really think that you have prepared a fair, reasonable and balanced evaluation in this section of your document headed Assessment of the St Mary's School Proposals against HESP when you have ignored the two main adverse factors in relation to the Trust? Do you think that is fair, reasonable, professional? Do you think you're discharging your professional responsibilities to this inquiry and to the learned reporters by...
I've mentioned our main outstanding concern in paragraph 207 related to the new entrance on Regent Road, and explained why how we have assessed that. So I think in our consultation response we go into great detail over elements of the building that we feel could be improved, other aspects of the detailed list of building consent which we feel could be improved, and some of these has been. In this I have simply looked at the impact concerned in terms of it being less than your client's scheme.
Well, Mr Robb, I'm not asking about consultation response. I'm asking about this report to the inquiry which will go to ministers, in which you purport to carry out an assessment of the proposals. Do you think it fairly reflects on a professional basis the issues that face the Trust proposal? And please reflect on your answer.
I think in terms of what I'm being asked to do, to assess it in terms of HESP's 3.47C, this is to assess it in terms of, I'll read it out, whether there are other options which would ensure continuing beneficial use for the building with less impact on its special interest. I've assessed it by that, rather than assess the scheme overall, as we've done in our consultation response.
Well, can you explain why, if that is the case, you simply have not dealt in any detail at all with the adverse issues that affect the Trust proposal? Why is that?
Well, I've mentioned them. I may not have gone into detail on them, but
Mr. Robb,
in 207 I've gone into some detail.
Have you mentioned the issue of building between the north of the Hamilton building and the north wall? I thought we agreed that you hadn't mentioned that.
I haven't gone into detail on that issue.
You haven't mentioned it at all, have you?
It has been mentioned.
Only as a factual statement, but you have not indicated any adverse effects arising at all, have you?
No, that appears in our consultation response.
That's an error, isn't it?
Well, it appears in our consultation response.
So are you saying, Mr. Robb, then that in our report, when we need to reflect HES's consideration of this issue, we would need to read this section of your inquiry report together with the HES consultation response?
Yes, I think that would be fair.
So I note it's about 11:30 if you were thinking of having a break.
Perfect. I was thinking of that, Mr. Thank you. Okay. Let's have a break until 11:45.
Thank you, sir. I've got no further questions. Thank you.
Okay. In that case, bear with us just for a few minutes. Do you have anything?
Yeah. Mr. Robb. Just a few questions from me. Some of them are quite straightforward and simple ones. You mentioned something yesterday when we were talking about the various options that you identified under 3.47C. And I made a note, and it wasn't quite clear what it was, what I'd written down to me, but it was to do with the weight to ascribe to these options. Can you give me some guidance on how weight should be ascribed to options under that consideration?
Well, I think it's rare, as I was saying, it's rare that there is...
I wonder if Mr Robb could speak into the microphone. I certainly can't hear him. I don't know about anyone else.
I think it's that test is really looking for a remarketing of the building as an end position, because I think it's very rare that there is normally a rival scheme, if you like, or just another scheme really. But it is essentially saying this scheme has an adverse impact, and are there any other schemes out there? I think I'm not saying that there are any physical schemes at this point, but I think it is a case of would there be, and how would you best find out whether they are available? And I think that would probably be a remarketing, I would imagine, based on a proper brief for the site, perhaps even with the massing analysis document.
So those would be potential schemes that we know nothing about, is that fair?
Potential schemes, yes.
So is the weight less to something like that than it would be to a scheme that's got consents?
I think it would have to be that. I think that's why I mentioned that the council had viewed it as a material consideration, because it had consent, and that's how they went into the second application subcommittee did.
Okay. Come back to that. At your inquiry report, paragraph 155, just wanted to, I think you answered a question on that. Let's find myself now. Yes, okay, if the council is correct an assessment of the potential benefits, the justification for demolition falls at the first hurdle. If we, and then ultimately ministers, found that the proposals were acceptable, would that justify demolition of the gatehouse? Is it in effect turning that round?
Yes.
It would?
Yes, I think we're very specific. I mean, it's why I've tried to differentiate the considerations at 3.47 from actual tests at 348. I think they are a specific test. If you meet the test, then the building can be demolished. And we have this is a very standard. Most of the objections that we put forward are about demolition of buildings. So we're quite we are. I have been sort of rewriting some of our demolition guidance at the moment. There's been something in there to perhaps take account of decisions, reporters' decisions. But really, if you meet the test, then the demolition should be allowed.
Okay, thank you.
And just one question from me, Mr. Robb. I think I understood you yesterday to say that both appeal schemes are so adverse that they shouldn't be consented even in absence of alternative schemes under paragraph 3.47C.
Yes, we would have objected to these schemes even if there hadn't been another scheme. I mean, in fact, we tried to make the point that we're not viewing this as some sort of beauty parade of applications. It's generally we believe that the appellant schemes are adverse in their own right, so that that wouldn't have influenced our decision to object in any way.
Okay, and arising from that, you also, there was also some discussion yesterday about the building being on the Buildings at Risk register, and I think you mentioned that the condition of the building had deteriorated, but that had somehow been arrested more recently. Is HES's consideration of this issue that although on the Buildings at Risk register, the building somehow isn't in any imminent danger, and therefore that there's no real imperative to have the building put into reuse urgently, if you like?
Not entirely. I think what happened was when the original contract lease arrangements I think in 2010 or 2014, the council stopped maintaining the building for a while, or there was a lack of maintenance, and it did dip down fairly well, but badly. But I think it is being maintained. But any empty building with no future can appear on the buildings at risk list.
What would you say its condition was? Is it poor, fair, good?
I think when we first, I think early in the procedures when we went around, it looked worse because there was plaster falling down. There was visible signs of dry rot and wet rot, but there has been repairs undertaken and maintenance and gutters cleared, and I think it's now in a relatively sustainable state. But obviously our prime intention is to get buildings into reuse. We don't think this is a case that we can just mothball this building forever. It really needs a use.
Okay. I've just got one more question about the approach to considering demolition. This is a single listed building, entire site, isn't it? I've got that right.
It's a single listing.
Yes.
List description, which includes several buildings. I was trying to make the point that we are now, since 2015, we can be a little bit more, we can go into further detail when we list buildings. So it may be if we relisted this site, we'd list the buildings individually.
or make some exceptions, presumably.
Yeah, we can. We now do have the power to make exceptions from buildings that are included in the list as well. But yes, it's an entire listing, and it covers the Hamilton building, the boundary treatments, and the gym and the lodge, but not the luncheon block or the classroom.
It may only be a subtle difference, but I'm wondering whether the approach should be to consider demolition of any separate building on its own, or as a consideration of its impact on the whole listing in the balance.
Normally, councils take it as an individual building being demolished, but I can understand because they are separate buildings. I think we would take that view if it was a part of one building, if it was attached.
For instance, a pavilion or a wing.
Yes.
But not a separate structure.
Not a separate structure. That's normally the custom in dealing with these.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Mr. Mackay.
Mr. Robb, a few questions about your approach to HESPs. Now, although that abbreviation's been used a lot during the inquiry, what is HESPs? What is it, and what is it designed to provide?
It's the Historic Environment Scotland policy statement. So it shows it's a difference from SHEP because we have become a new organisation. So it's essentially our policy, and it should be treated as a material consideration by Scottish ministers.
And if you have, please, the HESP before you, CD 498. If you look again, please, at paragraphs 347 and 348. That's
I have them. Yeah.
Yes, page 35. Now, you were asked a few questions by Mr. Steele about what the word ensure was meant to mean in this context. Now, before we get into that, what's the general policy objective that this part of HESPS is trying to achieve, do you think?
47C.
Indeed.
I think it's dealing... it starts off the determination of applications by looking at schemes where there is no issue, where there's no adverse issue. So this proposal in 347 is where we have alteration or adaptation which will have an adverse or significantly adverse impact. Now, we believe it is a significantly adverse impact. So I think these considerations are something to be weighed up in determining an application. As we went through them yesterday in terms of A is the relative importance of the building and the scale of the impact. B, these are we've viewed as being of a very high level. With C, I think what we're saying is, are there any other proposals out there? It's similar to the demolition tests where you market the building to a restoring purchaser. It's saying, is there anyone else who can take this building on and come up with a less impactful scheme? And how you go about that? Normally, it would be a marketing exercise. In this situation, I think we're saying that the test can be met because there is already a scheme that has full planning permission and listed building consent. But what I view that test as saying, is the optimum viable use for the building should be taken, which is of less harm.
Obliged. And insofar as you explain in your evidence that, in your view, the ability of the developer to enter into a long-term contractual agreement with the council, tying up the site, perhaps indefinitely, if we take Mr Steele's cross-examination at face value, was irrelevant, as that was the way you put it. Can you explain why you take that view in the context of what the policy provision is trying to achieve?
I don't think the policy. I don't think that a contractual arrangement should frustrate the policy. The idea behind the policy, which is to see whether there is a less impactful use. I don't think that's a planning consideration to say that the contract will not allow anyone else to take the building, because all the test is asking is there a less impactful use which is viable? And often, as I say, in that situation, it's guesswork. You know, that we would assume, because this part of Edinburgh, well, Edinburgh generally, but this part of Edinburgh is very buoyant at the moment. It's a very different position than we were in 2010 and before that, after the crash. It would be my professional opinion that there would be other people who would be interested in this site, and I've actually, off the record, had conversations with people.
So that, if I may say so, that's just outrageous.
I'm not noting that.
Okay,
well,
sorry.
Well, sir, thank you.
I have your evidence about the position that you don't believe that it is proper for a contractual agreement to frustrate the objective of the policy.
Yes.
Let's say, though, that you're wrong about that, because clearly there will be competing submissions made to the reporters on this issue. So we don't have the terms of the contract before us as yet, anyway, but to try and anticipate, to some extent, what might come out of this issue, can I put a scenario to you? The scenario is that the appeals are refused and no other acceptable hotel proposal is brought forward by the appellants for a hotel scheme by the long stop date, which, as we know, is March 21, or any contractual extension to that long stop date. Now, we can't speculate what that date might be, but that's the scenario I'm putting to you. In those circumstances, what weight do you invite the reporters to attach to the fact that, unusually, as you pointed out, there is already a consented scheme waiting in the wings?
I think I would attach substantial weight to that, because it is proving that there is a less impactful scheme out there. There may be the opportunity to look for other less impactful uses. I mean, the council, in their disposal of buildings, would have to go through their normal procedures, so it's not a case of the music stool being handed this site at some point in the future. If this proposal was to be refused. But I think you have to put a lot of weight in the fact that there is a scheme there, and it's quite rare. It's not often that we come across this situation. Normally, we're having to, certainly with demolition cases, we're assuming that there may be someone out there who can save a building. And again, the example of the building just around the corner there was a building that someone said they could do nothing with, and yet it was put on the market, and it's been a church for the best part of 10 years.
Mr Steele put a number of questions to you in relation to your inquiry report, which were designed to create the impression that you'd been unfair in some way in the way you'd treated the music school proposal. Can I ask you to look again, please, at pages 46 and 47 of your inquiry report. First of all, general question, is there anything that was put to you in cross-examination that's changed your opinion as to the fact that the music school would be more beneficial?
No, I believe... I think we've been unfairly... it's been put to us that all we're interested in is the Western Playground, but I think the music school scheme, as well as restoring the Western Playground, it doesn't demolish the lodge building, which I think is generally considered to be of interest by all parties. Perhaps not a Category A listed building from the appellant's view, but certainly a Category B listed building. So the Western Playground would be restored. The development in the Eastern Playground is at a much lower height, which would reveal the Belvedere and part of the walling next to it. But it also retains this gap between the new build and the Hamilton building itself. One of the unfortunate elements of the appellant scheme is that the building is essentially encapsulated on both sides, on the western facade and the eastern facade. And there's a drawing that shows essentially the lower elevation of that building becomes within a sort of light well structure. So that the boundary, the stone walling, the railings around the building would be removed. So it does have a lot of beneficial elements in it. I'm not going to say that the building of the northern buildings against the retaining wall and the opening under the portico are beneficial. I think they are. They do have an adverse impact. But overall, this building, the music school scheme, would return, really, it would retain the primacy of the Royal High School, the Hamilton building on its site. It would retain its landscape backdrop against the hill. It has a lot of, it does, in my view, significantly have less impact than the two hotel schemes.
Now, in terms of this issue of retaining primacy and what you're trying to set out in detail, paragraph 2.10, can I ask you to read, please, paragraph 209 at the bottom of page 46, which precedes that aspect of your inquiry report?
Yes. The music school proposals restore the Hamilton building and enhance its setting on the Western Playground by removing the 1946 classroom block and poor 1970s landscaping. In addition, the eastern extension would be lower than both the existing gymnasium and the side elevations of the Hamilton building. The scale of the eastern extension is sympathetic to the site, including the Belvedere and rear boundary walling, which would be revealed for the first time in over 100 years. Vitally, the Hamilton building would retain its current and historic primacy on the site.
And then you say at the beginning of paragraph 210, in more detail. Is that the detail of what you've just expressed at the end of paragraph 209?
Yes, I mean, I think I'd fully expected our consultation response to be part of the consideration of this scheme. But what I'm trying to do here is to show why I consider that that the music school scheme has less impact on the development than the two hotel schemes. All
right. Going then back, please, now to consider paragraph 348 of HESPS. And again, you're taken to task by Mr. Steele in relation to document CD 356. Would you have that before you, please? It's the consultation response, CD 356, page 35.
I have that here.
And at the bottom of the page, there's a paragraph saying, then there's the question raised in the appellant's planning statement on whether the test for demolition of the listed buildings has been satisfied. We do not support the proposed hotel development and have objected to planning permission being granted. If planning permission for the scheme is not acceptable, then it follows the substantial benefits put forward through demolition of the listed buildings would not be achievable. This would suggest that listed building consent for demolition should not be granted for the building's loss unless a scheme for the wider site is considered acceptable. Now, you said in response to those questions in cross-examination that this paragraph related to the demolition tests. So yes. If we can go back, please, to paragraph 348 of HESPS. And can you explain what you meant by that in relation to what is said at 348C?
Well, what that test is doing is saying, is the benefits to either the public or economic growth so significant that it outweighs the strong presumption to retain a listed building? But in this case, I think I used some example of a building in the middle of a field there would be nothing to stop a development going ahead should the building be demolished. Often with listed building consent, we're dealing with a building on its own. Once the demolition of the building is accepted, there isn't really there wouldn't be a problem with the planning permission for the new development, because we're looking at the demolition of a building, and once the and especially if it's not in a conservation area, but if we're looking at the demolition of a building, once that has been agreed, it's really normally planning permission would be acceptable for its replacement. But in this case, we're dealing with a site with several listed buildings, a very complicated site and constrained site. So I think what I'm saying is that in order to justify the demolition of a listed building by this test, you have to be able to provide the benefits. And if the remainder of if the new build development or if the planning permission for the new works are not acceptable, then you can't provide the benefits.
In the wording of 348C, you can't deliver those significant benefits.
You can't deliver the benefits if the scheme is unacceptable.
Okay, thank you. Lastly, Mr. Robb, you were taken to task by Mr. Steele for having urged the reporters to recommend refusal of the appeals. Can I ask you, what is the threshold that Historic Environment Scotland works to when deciding whether to object to a proposal?
It's the same as Scottish ministers, raising issues of national significance. We don't have a checklist of when we object, but it's raising issues of national significance. We also take into account whether policy could be changed by a scheme going forward, or would need to be revisited. But really, that it's after a careful balance. We're normally dealing with demolition of listed buildings in terms of the majority of our objections, or setting. Certainly, there's a lot of setting of wind farms, but it's really the phrase used is raising issues of national significance, which is the same as Scottish ministers' call-in procedures.
So in the present circumstances, both hotel scheme proposals raise issues of national significance, in your opinion, but the music school proposal does not. Is that right?
We believe that's the case, yes.
Right. Now, you were also asked about the extent to which you had reflected upon economic considerations, and you quite properly accepted that ultimately these are matters that the ministers will require to form a judgment on.
Yes.
Can I ask you please to look to your inquiry report, page 37. And so we understand to what extent you have taken into account economic considerations and the position of the local authority. Can I ask you please to read between paragraphs 151 and 155, omitting 153, which doesn't seem to be relevant for present purposes, but if you can read 151, 152, 154 and 155.
Okay. Dealing first with number one, that's the proposals will provide significant economic or public benefits on at least a regional level. HES often takes a view on this point, but in complicated cases often relies on the expertise of the City Council to assess whether, indeed, the benefits are of regional significance. From an initial consideration by HES, the repair and reuse of the building is, of course, welcome, but the provision of 127 or 147 hotel bedrooms would not appear to provide substantial regional benefits, especially when Edinburgh has over 4,000 rooms in construction, approved or otherwise in the pipeline. A study in 2016 puts this figure even higher at 6,339 shared bed between 46 planned developments. It is noted that there are currently over 800 hotel bedrooms in 5-star hotels in the city.
Sir, I just pause to note that this is an issue that's being dealt with in the second session, and I didn't ask any questions about it in cross-examination. Therefore, it doesn't arise out of cross-examination. So I object to this for two reasons. One, it doesn't arise out of cross-examination, and two, in any event, it's for the second session.
Sir, it most certainly arises out of cross-examination, which was put squarely to Mr Robb that he had neglected to take into account the economic benefits associated with the scheme, and that he had been unfair, as I understood it, Mr Steele suggesting to the witness. So this is most certainly arising out of his cross-examination. I'm not asking Mr Robb to express a professional view as an economist or someone with understanding of economic matters as to what the level of impacts would be. What I'm asking him to confirm is the extent to which he relies on the evidence which the Council has provided in informing his approach to the policy position, and that's what I'm taking from him.
Sir, I most certainly did not ask questions about hotel bedroom numbers and the specific economic benefit and the rooms in the pipeline, because we're leading detailed evidence about that later.
That's right, Mr Steele, although you did ask about the witness's consideration of economic impact. So we'll note this line of re-examination within that context.
Okay. Shall I continue? The City 152. The City Council found that the proposals could make a positive contribution to Edinburgh's economy, but there is no clear evidence that the hotel would contribute benefits to significant economic growth or the wider region or nation, nor that it is a strategic and essential development with no other potential locations for delivery. I think that refers to it being essential, the demolition of the building being essential to achieve benefits. In conclusion, the proposal does not meet the requirements of Test C of HESPs. In relation to 3, even if the proposed benefits were argued to be substantial, they cannot be achieved if the scheme cannot proceed. HES has looked at many cases that have concerned an individual building with no complications following its loss and redevelopment, and thus no issues with the benefits being achievable. However, in this case, if a justification for the loss of the gate lodge is made, it cannot be divorced from the wider site, which contains a Category A listed building of international importance. Alongside listed building consent for demolition, HES does not support planning permission being granted for the wider proposals. If permission for the scheme is not given, it cannot proceed and therefore has no opportunity to provide the argued benefits. If the Council is correct in its assessment of the potential benefits, the justification for demolition falls at the first hurdle. In any event, as the benefits could not proceed without the remainder of the site being acceptable in listed building and planning terms, I consider that the demolition of the gate lodge has not been justified using HESP's Test C.
Does it follow from that part of your inquiry report that, so far as you're aware, the Council have questioned whether the economic benefits can even be described as being of regional benefit?
That was my understanding.
And if that is so, and if that evidence is ultimately accepted by the reporters and by ministers, do you ask the reporters to weigh that in the balance as against the issues of national significance that HES have identified in relation to the hotel proposals?
I would. I mean, as I've said there, we often rely on the Council to take an assessment, an economic assessment in complicated cases. I think there are some cases that it's quite clear that they would not provide significant economic or potential public benefits. You know, someone would say, that building's an eyesore, I'm going to replace it with a block of flats. That wouldn't count as significant regional benefit. So I think I would ask the reporters to look at that and attach substantial weight to it.
Thank you, Mr Robb. I have nothing further.
Thank you, Mr Robb. Thanks all. Now, Mr Mackay, is there a feeling we should take our lunch break now, or at least take Ms Denier's evidence in chief before lunch?
Yes, we could do that, sir, if that would assist. I don't think we'll be all that long in chief, to be honest, but it's a really matter for you, sir.
Let's take the evidence in chief, and she can still have some company for lunch.
Well, thank you. Sirs, the third and final witness for Historic Environment Scotland is Ms Susan Denyer. Good afternoon, Ms Denyer. You have a main precognition and a rebuttal precognition. Following the same approach with the other witnesses, can I ask you please to read your introductory paragraphs in your main precognition, that's paragraphs 1 to 6, and then take the rest of that precognition as read, move on to your rebuttal precognition, and insofar as your rebuttal precognition is concerned, there are quite a few quotations from the management plan. Feel free to abbreviate those, please, as you see fit.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon. To start with the precognition, paragraph 1 in the introduction. My name is Susan Denyer. This precognition has been produced for Historic Environment Scotland in my capacity as an expert witness. Paragraph 2. Since 2002, I have worked as Secretary of ICOMOS UK, the International Council on Monuments and Sites UK. In that capacity, I have been involved in public inquiries for the World Heritage Sites of Stonehenge, Avebury and associated monuments, New Lanark, and the heart of a Neolithic Orkney, and in providing advice on the potential impact of proposed developments on the outstanding universal value of World Heritage Sites, on management plans for World Heritage Sites, and on potential nominations for World Heritage status, all within the UK. Paragraph 3. Since 2003, I have also acted as World Heritage Advisor for ICOMOS International, in which capacity I am involved in assessing heritage impact assessments for World Heritage Sites outside the UK as part of the UNESCO World Heritage Site State of Conservation process, and have conducted the ICOMOS I have conducted 4 ICOMOS reactive and advisory missions at the invitation of state parties to assess potential impacts of potential developments on the OUV of World Heritage Sites outside the UK. I was involved in initiating and drafting the ICOMOS guidance on heritage impact assessments for cultural World Heritage properties. My qualifications and experience are set out in my CV. Paragraph 4. This precognition should be read in conjunction with my topic paper. It should also be read in the context of the HES advice containing their letters and consultation responses, which set out the full advice of HES, including the advice of its statutory predecessor, Historic Scotland. Paragraph 5. The HES objected to the applications, both the 2005 and 2007 applications, in terms of the significant adverse impact on key components of the old and new towns of Edinburgh World Heritage Site and its OUV. Paragraph 6. I have visited the site and its immediate and wider setting as part of my preparation for this inquiry. Now, can I turn to my rebuttal precognition? Introduction, paragraph 1. I would like to address 2 points from the precognition of Andrew Wright relating to the assessment of impacts of the proposed development on the attributes that convey the outstanding universal value of the World Heritage Site. These are whether the appellant's assessments have adequately defined the attributes of outstanding universal value that might be impacted by the proposed development, and how far the assessments have relied mainly on visual parameters to quantify impact. Paragraph 2. To start with the definition of attributes, in his precognition, Andrew Wright states that, and I quote, having identified and addressed gaps in knowledge, the programme of extended research undertaken on behalf of the appellants has enhanced levels of knowledge of the listed building and its setting. Perceived shortcomings have been addressed in relation to the character and appearance of the relevant parts of the conservation area, gardens and design landscape, and World Heritage Site. End of quote. And he continues that, quote, set out in parts 1 and 2 of the Heritage Statement, this body of work provides a sound foundation upon which to develop the designs for the appellant's schemes and to measure levels of impact on each of the heritage emphases. assets. End of quote. Paragraph 3. I note that the earlier parts of the Heritage Statement, particularly Part 1, contain useful background information and, unlike in Part 3, there is discussion of the Enlightenment and the contribution that the grouping of neoclassical buildings and monuments on Carlton Hill made to cementing Edinburgh's reputation as the Athens of the North. This work is, however, largely unreferenced and not related to the statement of OUV of the World Heritage Site in a systematic way. Paragraph 4. Whilst I acknowledge that, as author of those documents, it was Mr. Wright's intention that all three parts of the Heritage Statement should be read together, in my view, this does not mean that there has been a thorough analysis of the issues in their proper context. I therefore disagree that there has been a successful marrying up of the issues relevant to the assessment of the impact on attributes that convey OUV. Thus, I do not agree that the outcome of the programme of, quote, extended research, end of quote, provides a sound foundation for the assessment of impact. Paragraph 5. For the World Heritage Site, the aim should not be to assess impact on the buildings and landscapes as they were in the early 19th century, but on how they are now and for what they reflect of the original intentions of their architects, as acknowledged at the time of inscription of the World Heritage Site. It is therefore of the utmost importance that what is there now is related to the attributes that convey outstanding universal value, and in my view, this has not been done. Paragraph 6. The starting point for the impact assessment should have been a clear understanding of how the Royal High School, on its own, as part of the fusion of buildings and landscape that make up Calton Hill, an essential part of a wider picturesque landscape and its associated Enlightenment ideas, contributes to the attributes that convey its outstanding universal value. I consider that this basic starting point for the HIA is simply not in place. Indeed, it is stated that, and I quote, in focusing on the OUV, the HIA will not address directly the impact of the proposals on the setting and the fabric of Thomas Hamilton's Royal High School, end of quote, both of which I consider make crucial contributions to OUV. Paragraph 7. Nevertheless, even though the attributes that might be impacted have not been defined, and some ignored, Andrew Wright states in his precognition that, I quote, direct reference is made to the attributes that underpin the statement of outstanding universal value in respect of each of the views, which is married with the work carried out in the preparations of parts 1 and 2 of the Heritage Statement, end of quote. Furthermore, he asserts that, and I quote, each of the assessments takes into account wider historical and cultural associations of what appears within the scene. The values adopted are not mine. They are enshrined in the then current World Heritage Site Management Plan, end of quote. Paragraph 8. The HIA is based on a number of views of the Royal High School, which include what are called historical views and those chosen by 19th century photographers, that relate to the way onlookers experience the city. These views are said to be linked to the attributes of OUV through a numerical list of paragraphs in the Management Plan 2011-16 that set out the statement of outstanding universal value and attributes of OUV in general terms for the whole World Heritage Site. Paragraph 9. To take an example, view 11A of Calton Hill from St Anthony's Chapel is said to partly reflect a view favoured by Victorian photographers. The relationship of the view to the attributes of OUV is said to be defined through a list of numbers that are headed relevant clauses of outstanding universal value. And I won't list of all these. There are 25 numbers listed. Some numbers refer to the statement of OUV, while others relate to paragraphs in the management plan that set out the attributes of OUV for the overall World Heritage Site, that was seen as, and I quote, a starting point in increasing awareness and understanding of the site's key attributes and will help to further develop further work and guidance on this issue, end of quote. The 10 paragraphs relating to the statement of OUV are set out in my rebuttal, but I won't read them all. Of those 10, I highlighted 3 which I considered were relevant to parts of the World Heritage Site seen in the view. Paragraph 11. What has not been set out in the text is how the views, or what the views contain, contribute to the reference attributes of OUV. The attributes in the 3 paragraphs highlighted might be relevant for this view, but it would be necessary for the precise contribution of the view to these attributes to be set out, and this has not been done. It is not at all clear whether the remaining paragraphs are considered to be relevant, and if so, in what respect. Paragraph 12. There are similar problems with a list of paragraphs from the management plan which relate to further attributes, and again I've listed all those 5 of them, or sorry, more of them, 10 I think, and highlighted 4. Paragraph 13. For this view, and we're still talking about 11A, what has not been set out in the accompanying text is how the view, or what the view contains, contributes to these paragraphs and thus to the attributes of OUV. The value of the asset, i.e. the view, is said to be medium, but how that value was arrived at is not clear to me, nor whether it relates to outstanding universal value. Without this basic understanding of how the view, or what it contains, relates to the attributes of OUV, there is no foundation upon which to assess the impact of change in relation to OUV. Paragraph 14. The reasoning section for View 11A in each of the 2015 and 2017 assessments would appear to relate purely to a static visual image, in relation to which the magnitude of the visual impact is discussed. In summary, the impact on OUV is said to be minor beneficial, and although some adverse impact is acknowledged, this is said to be mitigated by the design of the wings and the long distance from which the site is viewed. Paragraph 15. Similar issues affect the other views that have been assessed. See, for example, view 4C from Waterloo Place. This is said to have high value and relate to also many paragraphs in the management plan relating to OUV. But again, there is no indication as to how this specific view has high value in relation to OUV, nor how it contributes to any of the attributes of OUV for the World Heritage Site as a whole. Paragraph 16. For this view, and 4C is being mentioned, the impact on OUV is stated to be minor adverse. The reasoning relates to the way the new wing closes the gap in the view between the far pylon of the forecourt of St Andrew's House and the edge of the hill as the road changes direction. The impact is thus not related to any defined attributes of OUV, only to the visual parameters within the view. Paragraph 17. A similar methodology is evident for all other views in terms of a lack of clarity as to how their value is defined in relation to OUV, and for the way the potential impacts of the proposed development on the attributes of OUV relates to the views that are being assessed. Paragraph 18. I consider that there is thus no adequate definition of how the views relate to the attributes of OUV, nor has there been an adequate assessment of potential impact on the attributes of OUV. Instead, what has been assessed is impact on a discrete number of visual images for which their relationship with OUV has not been defined, and where the impact is related to the visual composition of the view. Paragraph 19. The ICOMOS guidance on heritage impact assessments emphasises the need to understand why the heritage asset is important and how it contributes to OUV. A broad approach is needed, which involves the identification of both tangible and intangible heritage attributes. The associations which attributes have need to be linked back to the components of the Statement of Outstanding Universal Value in a clear way that does not oversimplify but retains cultural and other complexities, as set out in paragraphs 221, 223, 4.1 to 4.11 and 5.2. My own view is that the simple listing of potentially relevant clauses from the Statement of OUV and Management Plan, accompanied by a short description of view and reasoning sections which discuss the impact in visual terms, is not adequate in explaining the impact on vitally important cultural and other associations which I have referred to in my precognition. Paragraph 20. Thus, I consider that the conclusions that have been reached on impact cannot be supported and are, in my view, totally misleading. Paragraph 21. It is further stated in Andrew Wright's precognition that, and I quote, "It has been said by those opposed to the appellant's schemes that the assessments are purely visual, but I have provided evidence to the inquiry as to why I believe that this is not the case." End of quote. Paragraph 22. The words purely visual do not appear in my precognition or topic paper, but in the light of what has been set out above on the assessment and methodology, I consider it to be transparent from the assessments themselves that they can be properly described as primarily visual. In my view, they do not take full account of the interrelationships between the Royal High School and the surrounding landscapes, nor the ideas with which both are associated, all in relation to outstanding universal value. Indeed, the HIA does acknowledge that, and I quote, "the assessment of impact of any development is primarily visual," end of quote. Conclusions. Paragraph 23. I do not accept that the HIA is underpinned by a fine grain of understanding for how the Royal High School relates to the attributes of OUV. Such basic details as the relationship between the Royal High School and OUV have quite simply not been provided in the impact assessments that have been presented. Nor, in my view, has there been a successful marrying up of parts 1 and 2 of the Heritage Statement with the HIAs, as is suggested by Mr. Wright. Paragraph 24. In my view, there is no doubt that the appellant's HIAs for the 2005 and 2007 schemes are primarily assessments of visual impact, albeit in relation to views that are said to contribute to attributes that convey OUV. Paragraph 25. As has been set out in my precognition, I consider that had the HIA been properly undertaken with a clear baseline assessment of how the Royal High School contributes to the attributes of OUB, including how the building is integrated into the landscape of Calton Hill, as well as approaches and views to and from the city, and how it reflects strong associations with Enlightenment ideas, then the HIA would have reached very different conclusions. With primarily visual dimensions being considered, the full cultural value of Edinburgh's urban landscape has been lost, and with it the strong contribution of Hamilton's masterpiece to the outstanding universal value of the World Heritage Site.
Just to understand what those conclusions are, Ms. Denyer, can I briefly ask you to read your overall conclusions in your main precognition? That's paragraphs 66 to 68.
Okay, these are two paragraphs of overall conclusions from the precognition. Paragraph 66. I consider that the scale of the proposed developments in both applications would have a highly detrimental impact on the precise, skillful planning and design of the Royal High School, a masterpiece of architecture that contributes substantially to the overall topography of Calton Hill, which, with its collection of nationally important monuments, came to be seen as the classical counterpart to the Gothic citadel of the castle, and a highly significant part of the overall picturesque landscape that intertwines the old and new towns of Edinburgh and contributes substantially to its outstanding universal value. Paragraph 67. Although the scale of the proposals has been slightly reduced in the 2017 application, this reduction has not mitigated the highly negative impact on outstanding universal value. In my opinion, both of the appeal proposals would have a highly significant negative impact on the outstanding universal value of the World Heritage Site. So, paragraph 26 of the rebuttal. I would therefore confirm, sirs, that I have found nothing in the precognition of Andrew Wright that causes me to change any of my evidence to the inquiry. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that, Ms Denyer. I'm assuming you have more than 20 minutes of cross-examination for Ms Denyer.
I would expect so, sir.
Yes, okay. In that case, let's break for lunch until 1:40.
It is now. Apologies. I thought it was. Ms Denyer, as I understand it, you're the Secretary for ICOMOS based in London. Is that so?
I am Secretary of ICOMOS UK. That's a part-time role, and that's based in London.
And ICOMOS in London has got 3 part-time employees?
Yes.
As I understand, ICOMOS are not a statutory consultee in this process. Is that so?
Yes, that is correct.
Thank you. But you are being led by Historic Scotland, or Historic Environment Scotland, as a witness, which they're perfectly entitled to do. That's correct, isn't it?
I have been asked to be an independent witness by Historic Environment Scotland.
Thank you. Now, how did you become aware of this proposal? Was that as a result of members of ICOMOS based in Scotland or possibly Edinburgh?
Just to clarify, no one organisation is a statutory consultee for World Heritage, so I just would like to make that point. The ICOMOS UK objected to the first application and also to the second application. These, I can't quite recall in what way we first heard about these proposals, but they were widely known, and there was a great deal of interest in them when they came forward.
Indeed, and your president or vice president in Scotland is Mr Simpson, is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
And he is quite interested in this proposal and is quite hostile to it, is he not? Or opposed to it might be a better way of putting it.
I think any public pronouncements he's been made have been made as a personal view.
I don't doubt that for a second, but Mr Simpson is quite opposed to this proposal, isn't he?
In his pronouncements, yes.
And indeed he has had discussions with you about the proposal, has he not?
I'm not quite sure what you mean by that.
Well, has he to any extent discussed our proposals, our applications with you, Ms Denyer?
Can I just clarify that the views of ICOMOS UK are formed through a committee, a World Heritage Committee, and the views put forward are the views, first of all, of that committee, and then they're ratified by the Executive Committee. So the views of ICOMOS UK are in no way the views of one individual.
No, I don't.
One individual may have a view, but at the end of the day, it's the corporate view that's set out.
And Mr Simpson is part of that committee, is that correct?
It is, you're correct.
And was it Mr Simpson who first drew your attention, or the ICOMOS attention and interest to this particular set of proposals, these 2 applications, now appeals?
Not as far as I'm aware, no.
But is it fair to say that he has been quite involved in both vocally objecting or opposing the schemes, and also as an individual, and also through ICOMOS?
I would like to point out that during the course of a year, ICOMOS UK comments on a large number of proposals for development within World Heritage Sites. So quite how we heard of this one, I'm not sure, but clearly these schemes are of great importance to the World Heritage Site in Scotland, and that is why the committee considered them and why ICOMOS UK decided to write an objection.
Yeah. And Mr. Simpson was involved in that?
I've already said he was a member of the committee, but one member, and the view that came out of that committee was the corporate view of the committee.
Indeed.
And Mr. Simpson did not unduly influence the committee.
Indeed. Because you know the next question, or series of questions are coming, Ms Denyer, don't you? Mr. Simpson is the very Mr. Simpson of Simpson and Brown Architects, isn't he?
Yes.
And Simpson and Brown Architects are instructed on behalf of the Trust, are they not?
Yes.
So it comes to this, so far as I can understand it, that Mr. Simpson, who firm Simpson and Brown is instructed on behalf of the Trusts, both personally and through ICOMOS, has objected to our proposals.
Mr. Simpson has not objected through ICOMOS to these proposals.
Now, can you tell me, please, Ms Denyer, how many heritage impact assessments you yourself have carried out?
I have not carried out any, because that's not my role.
Can you tell me on how many occasions you have been within the main Hamilton building?
Within the building, I've been there once.
And when was that?
I'm afraid I can't remember. I'd have to look up precisely what date it was when I was in the building.
Well, is it relatively recently, or is it quite a time ago?
Relatively recently.
Was it for the purposes of these appeals that you were in the building?
Yes, indeed.
And were you in only the main building, or were you in the other surrounding and related buildings on the site?
As I set out in my recognition, that I visited the site and sufficiently well to allow me to write my
Sorry, I didn't catch that answer.
I visited the site and its settings and most of the main buildings.
Did you visit the other 4 buildings around?
Not all of them, no.
You make various complaints about the viewpoints, Ms Denyer. Are you aware that all the viewpoints were agreed with the City of Edinburgh Council, who are the relevant planning authority?
My answer is yes, but I would like to give an explanation, if I may. Because I think the viewpoints are particularly crucial to what I have, the evidence that I have put forward and to this inquiry. I did note that when Mr. Wright was cross-examined, he said that indeed the viewpoints were given to him. I made a note of precisely what he said, that the views were agreed by the council, or he said set by or selected by the council, and that he was not a party to the selection of views. I think this is one of the difficulties that I've highlighted in my evidence, that the HIA has relied on these viewpoints, even though, as Mr. Wright admitted, he was not party to how they were chosen and how they were defined. And this is one of the very main weaknesses of the HIA, that it relies almost exclusively on the impact of change on these views, which, as he said, were given to him by the council and were not chosen because of their relationship to outstanding universal value.
Ms Denyer, can we leave the matter on this basis, that the viewpoints were agreed with the responsible planning authority?
Again, can I say yes, but qualify it? They were agreed by the responsible planning authority. But as I understand it, the responsible planning authority did not say that these were the only receptors to be used in the HIA, there was nothing to stop Mr. Wright considering not only the views, but also the other attributes, or not just the other, but the main attributes of outstanding universal value that should have been considered. He could have done both.
Have you been yourself, Ms Denyer, to all the viewpoints?
I think it's fair to say yes, I have.
Are you sure about that, yes?
Yes, I think so.
So far as the HIA is concerned, as I understand it, you say at paragraph 14 that the overall approach is in line with the ICOMOS guidelines.
Which document are we referring to?
So sorry, that's my fault. It's your report, which is HES 4. Paragraph 14, in which you accept, as I understand it, the approach in relation to the HIA is in line with the ICOMOS guidance.
I think if you look at paragraph, this is the format of my topic paper.
Pardon?
What I'm setting out here is the format for my topic paper, as the heading suggests above paragraph 11. The topic paper will follow the approach set out in Managing Change in the Historic Environment.
I'm sorry, my misunderstanding. I thought you were considering and reflecting upon the content of the HIA, which is what you say at paragraph 11. So you are identifying there the method that you are following rather than the method followed by Mr. Wright. Is that correct?
I'm identifying the method I am following, which is the three-stage approach which is set out in Managing Change in the Historic Environment, World Heritage.
And your main complaint in relation to the HIA is the issue of viewpoints.
Are we still referring to the topic paper?
Well, I don't mind which you refer to, but as I understood it, you said a moment or two ago that your main complaint, the main weakness of the HIA, is the word you used, relates to the viewpoints.
What
I'm sure that's entirely accurate, sir. I certainly understood her to be saying that one of the main issues, yes, one of the main weaknesses was that aspect.
That is correct. I said one of the key issues is that the HIA has relied on a number of views as receptors and has not relied on measuring impact on the attributes of OUV which will be impacted by these schemes.
Even Ms Denyer, if that was correct, do you accept that the learned reporters will have sufficient information before them in relation to the AIA as a result of this very, very lengthy and no doubt expensive inquiry process?
Sorry, did you say AIA or the HIA?
Well, I meant to say HIA. I hope I did.
No, I do not agree, because I think it is why we're all here is to consider the impact of these proposals on the number of different designations. And what I'm here for is to look at the impact on the World Heritage Site. It is absolutely crucial that in looking at the impact on the World Heritage Site, that we define how that World Heritage Site will be impacted by these proposals. And to do that, there has to be a clear understanding of which attributes of outstanding universal value might be impacted. Unless we have that clear starting point, then all of the other architecture of the assessments, if you like, fails if we haven't got that starting block at the beginning.
Well, that may be one consideration that has to be looked at, Ms Denyer, but do you accept that another consideration that may be thought to be important is reusing the main Hamilton building? That might be thought to be important.
What I think is very important is that the impact should be considered on the Hamilton building. And as I pointed out in my evidence, that was what the HIA omitted to do. The Hamilton building was excluded from the HIA. I absolutely agree that the impact on the Hamilton building should have been considered, including the impact from the scheme as a result of bringing the building back into reuse as a hotel.
You say hotel.
And that impact was
what is the relevance of the hotel aspect to that, Ms Denyer? Do I take it from that you disapprove of the use of a hotel as a hotel?
What we're considering here is the impact of the two schemes and how the building and its setting will be altered in order to accommodate the use of a hotel. We're not considering per se whether hotels are good things or bad things, but the impact of these two schemes on the Hamilton building, its setting, its contribution to the World Heritage Site, as a result of the proposals that are being put forward for use as a hotel.
Ms Denyer, can I ask your opinion, please, as to whether the use as a hotel is suitable or unsuitable?
Whether or not it's suitable is all tied up to the implications of the alterations that will be necessary to turn this building into a hotel. And that's why we're here, and what I've just explained in my previous answer.
Well, I wonder, just as a matter of principle, do you approve or disapprove of its use as a hotel?
I think that's a non-question, if I may say so.
Well, I'm sure you're entirely right about it, but unfortunately I think I'm entitled to ask you that, Ms Denyer, and I hope you would have the courtesy of giving me an answer.
Can you just phrase that again, the question again?
Do you
please?
approve or disapprove of the reuse of the main Hamilton building as an hotel?
If it's phrased in that way, then my answer is related to the implications of reusing the building as a hotel, as I've just outlined. It is not per se whether the Hamilton building should be used as a hotel or not, but whether the implications in the two schemes before us are acceptable or not.
Can I just press you a little bit on this, Ms Denyer? Is the truth of the matter is this, that you're really not very approving of the use in principle as a hotel?
No, that is not correct.
Well, what is your position then, please?
In what relation?
In relation to the reuse in principle of the building as a hotel.
I think I've already answered this question. In terms of reusing the building as a hotel, either under Scheme 1 or Scheme 2, in my view, this would have a totally unacceptable negative impact on the World Heritage Site.
And do I take it then that that is nothing to do with the fact that it's to be reused as a hotel? It's as a consequence of the physical alterations. Is that what you say?
Yes, that's correct.
Now, where do we see, you will realise that every planning decision is a mixture of advantages and disadvantages. Is that fair?
This is how the planning system works, yes.
Thank you. Have you anywhere in your evidence listed an obvious advantage of bringing this building back into use?
I don't think I've set it out quite in the way that you suggest, but I would like to draw attention to both the ICOMOS guidance and the Managing Change in the Historic Environment, both of which suggest that in looking at impacts, one looks at benefits and disbenefits as well. But I think, I don't know whether I can just draw attention to the Managing Change in the Historic Environment, which is CD 503 on page 14, which says opportunities to enhance World Heritage Sites should be identified as early as possible. Such measures are unlikely to avoid or reduce impacts, but may provide benefits for the historic environment. And I think in undertaking my evidence and putting forward my views, I've taken account of what it says there, which is in line with how ICOMOS evaluates impact on World Heritage, that we have to look at the impact first. We take account of opportunities or benefits, but at the end of the day, however great the benefits, those cannot outweigh negative impact on outstanding universal value.
Now, Ms Denyer, that's a very bold assertion. Do you not think that that might be for the learned reporters and the Scottish ministers to make that determination?
I don't think it's... well, just to clarify, the World Heritage Convention is a convention that is voluntarily signed up to by states parties. But the obligations of the convention are to ensure that the outstanding universal value of the inscribed World Heritage sites within their territory is maintained. And that's an obligation that the government of the UK has signed up to. That being the case, it is, I think, therefore clear that it would be difficult to approve a scheme that had very high adverse impacts on outstanding universal value that were thought could be mitigated by certain benefits that the scheme delivers.
Well, that's putting the matter slightly differently. Now, Ms Denyer, have you considered the economic realities of the situation of saving the main Hamilton building and how much it's going to cost and how that can be funded? Have you, or ICOMOS, given consideration to that?
No, I have not.
Have you considered the economic advantages that might flow to Scottish tourism from any such proposal going ahead?
That wasn't part of my topic paper.
No. Have you had regard to the terms and policies of the development plan?
Nor was that part of my topic paper.
Have you had regard to the terms and wording and detail of the HESPS test, which we heard quite a lot about earlier today and yesterday?
I'm aware of all these things, but my topic paper was specifically looking at the potential impact on the World Heritage Site.
Indeed. And Ms Denyer, have you considered this possibility that if Mr Taverner is correct, and I'll give you the quote in relation to the proposal, a site-specific architectural proposition that is unique and I contend brilliant in conception, if he's right about that, it might actually enhance the World Heritage Site. Have you given any consideration to that possibility?
I think we have to be clear here that when a site is inscribed on the World Heritage List, it's considered to have outstanding universal value, and that is set out in a statement of outstanding universal value. That doesn't get enhanced subsequently, so can we just be clear about that? I assume what Professor Taverner meant was perhaps it could enhance appreciation or understanding, perhaps something like that. But those are aspects that I have certainly considered in my evidence as to whether the additions that are proposed under the various schemes are beneficial or detrimental to the Hamilton building, to Calton Hill, to the wider World Heritage Site. And in my view, they are highly detrimental, not beneficial.
Could I ask you, please, to look at production EW33? And this was a letter from your council, I think not signed by you, but by the chairman, in relation to these proposals. Now, Ms Denyer, I assume, well, let me not assume anything. Did you write this letter?
No.
Have you seen it before?
Of course, yes, I have seen it.
And you'll have heard Mr Wright's comments about it?
Yes, indeed.
Well, if we turn to page 2, the second last paragraph, do you accept that that's an error, both in spelling and in fact in relation to the Hope Town monument.
Yes.
So we should delete that.
That is incorrect, I agree.
And do you also agree that the reference in the next paragraph to Gillespie Graham is equally incorrect, and we should delete that also?
This was brought up, as you say, under Mr. Wright's cross-examination.
Are you able to give us a better understanding as to how these pretty fundamental errors came to be made?
No, I'm afraid I'm not.
Does it possibly demonstrate a lack of understanding of a factual nature in relation to Carlton Hill?
I don't think it was that. I think it was an editing problem, but it should not have happened, I agree.
And in fact, the Hopetoun Monument is located quite some distance away, isn't it?
Indeed, yes.
Now, you clearly have travelled widely in relation to World Heritage issues. So can I just ask you one or two wider questions, Ms. Denyer? Are you aware that Rosewood Hotels operate hotels in a number of World Heritage sites?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Yes. Are you aware that Rosewood Hotels operate a number of their hotels within World Heritage sites?
Yes, I have heard that mentioned.
And that is as follows: Tuscany, Amsterdam, Vienna, Siem Reap in Cambodia, and Mexico. Is that so?
I'm sure you're correct in what you're saying.
And does that demonstrate that for other countries at least, some other countries at least, Rosewoods operate their hotels perfectly successfully in World Heritage sites?
That cannot be answered quite as simply with a yes or a no, because how hotels fit into a World Heritage site depends entirely on the nature of the World Heritage site and why it is inscribed, what its outstanding universal value is, where the hotel is, what the building it sits in is, and so on and so forth. There is, just because a hotel works in one World Heritage site, it doesn't mean that it will work in another necessarily. And I'm sure it would be the case that perhaps they could operate hotels somewhere else in Edinburgh, but that's not the issue. The issue is we're talking about one specific building here, and that's the Royal High School.
What this does surely indicate, Ms. Denyer, that the Rosewood Hotels understand completely their responsibilities if they are operating in a World Heritage site. That would be fair, would it not?
I cannot comment on that.
Are you also aware that they operate in the Crillon Hotel in Paris, which is an historic monument?
I'm sure what you say is correct, but I don't think it's relevant.
Now, can I just ask you, please, about attitudes to new builds and structures? You're based in London, so can I ask you firstly about the Barbican Centre? When that was built, was that thought to be extremely ugly and unsuitable?
I'm not quite sure of the relevance of this question.
That may be a matter for my submission, but as a matter of fact, is that not accurate?
I think it may be accurate in some people's minds, but not everybody. Not everybody. I mean, you're taking a view at a particular time. I'm not sure whose view, but you're saying that you're implying this is a general view, but I'm not sure that we can talk in such generalities.
Did it, in 2003, gain an award for one of the ugliest buildings in London?
Again, maybe not. I'm sure that was true, but why is this relevant, please?
Do you know how it is now rated in terms of architecture?
Yes, I'm very well aware of the Barbican because it's very near my office.
And has it won architectural awards more recently?
Of course, yes.
And the Trellick Tower in London, when first constructed, was reviled, wasn't it?
This line of questioning is very difficult because we're dealing with buildings slightly arbitrarily selected, and I'm not sure of the relevance, because what we're talking about here is the impact on a World Heritage Site which has very clearly defined value.
Well, that may be, Ms Denyer, but if you just humour me, so far as the Trellick Tower is concerned, that was on construction reviled, wasn't it?
Again, you're not telling me by whom. You're assuming that it was generally reviled, and I don't think that was the case.
And how is it now regarded, do you know?
I think we're talking about a difference of appreciation, as you suggest.
Well, let me take you to another building then, slightly further afield, that I'm sure you can assist with, Ms Denyer, in Barcelona, where I'm sure you've been.
Yes.
Yeah. Gaudi's building, Casa Milà. You'll be familiar, I'm sure.
Yes.
Yes. How was that regarded when it was first constructed, or first designed and constructed by Gaudi for the Milà family?
I again do not think this is relevant, because
that may be.
Appreciation changes in terms of the value that is given by people to buildings over time. Where I think, and I would like to come back to World Heritage status, is that when a site is inscribed on the World Heritage List, its value is defined at a particular moment, and that value is a value that is intended to reflect its international value for all mankind, and that value is then fixed. In all these other examples you've given me, their context has changed very much over the years, and so has their value and appreciation. And I think it's a bit like chalk and cheese. We're talking about two different things here.
Just humour this Scottish lawyer, if you would, just for a moment or two, Ms Denyer. Taking you back to Casa Milà, that is located in an affluent area, is it not?
It is, indeed.
And the local residents were, to put it mildly, in uproar at the time that this building was proposed and constructed, were they not?
You were telling me they were.
No, I'm not telling you, I'm asking you. Is that not the case?
I really don't know enough about that building at the time of its construction to be able to agree with that.
Do you not know that the building was ridiculed and there was, if not civil unrest, a great deal of disaffection with it?
You may be correct.
Is it also correct to suggest to you that most recently UNESCO have done something in relation to that building?
I know certain things, but you can tell me which one you're referring to.
Has it more recently been made by UNESCO a World Heritage Site?
It's part of a World Heritage Site, one component.
And is it an important part?
It is part of a World Heritage Site, which is several buildings by Gaudi, which together make up the series that is the World Heritage Site. And of course, they're all important, yes.
Yes. So, a building that at one stage is objected to, particularly by local residents as being unsuitable, can become part of a World Heritage Site and much visited by people from around the world. Is that the position in relation to Casa Milà?
I think if you put it that way, but I'm not sure the point that is being proved.
Thank you very much. No further questions. Thank you, Ms Denyer.
Thank you, Mr Steele. Mr Mackay.
No re-examination, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks all for that. You're released, Ms Denyer.
Thank you.
Okay, that is a very early finish to the day. Perhaps, Mr Steele, in future, if you perceive the likelihood of such early finishes, you could flag that up a day or so in advance. I'm not being critical, but it would keep us on track if you could do that.
Well, sir, I note that I had no understanding at all that there had been an agreement reached that the AHSS would not come until tomorrow, and I identified the issue this morning when I realised what the position was going to be. It's always difficult to predict things. I'd given the best prediction at the outset. Things went a bit quicker. So it might be difficult to do it a day in advance, but what I think might be very helpful now is to programme for the rest of the week, now that we know a bit better where we are, sir.
Okay, so at the minute for the rest of the week, well, we have the timetable that was produced on behalf of your clients, Mr. Steele. Do you foresee any prospect of that all being brought forward?
Well,
bearing in mind we've got some witnesses fixed for the Friday now.
Well, sir, at the moment I don't have the timetable in front of me, but it may be getting brought to me. But I would have thought, sir, tomorrow we will certainly proceed beyond Mr. Lowry and Mr. Drummond.
We have Dr. Carter McKee down for tomorrow also.
I would have thought, sir, that we would proceed beyond that as well. It's always difficult to be certain, but that is my best prediction.
Okay, Mr. McIntosh.
Certainly, Mr. Steele discussed this at lunchtime, and whilst I suspect that's optimistic, optimism is an important thing in timetabling. So I discussed the matter with Mr. Wilkinson, who's sitting with me, and he will be available tomorrow afternoon after Dr. Carter McGee, who was intending to be here for the whole day to watch Mr. Lowry in any event. So I can see no difficulty if we get to Mr. Wilkinson starting him tomorrow, if we get that far.
Okay.
So, however, unfortunately, Mr. Price cannot move forward to Wednesday, so he will be here from the first thing on Thursday morning. Mr. Leventhal, who is scheduled for Friday morning, will be available on Thursday, if, as I suspect, he is required.
My understanding is that the Trust have a fixed position for Monday, and I can't remember, and I don't have the timetable in front of me, whether there was a possibility of Ms. Nimmo and Ms. MacDonald and Mr. Harrison. They may indeed be on the timetable being brought forward.
Ms. Nimmo and Ms. MacDonald are both here. Would taking your evidence on Thursday be problematic in any way?
No, that would be fine. If we reach that, that would be fine. I think we were scheduled in for later on Friday.
For Friday, that's right.
But I think if Mrs. MacDonald, that would be fine.
Okay, thanks for that. That's helpful. That leaves Mr. Harrison, who we can contact through the office, just to see whether he's available on the Thursday also. That would leave us with a non-sitting day on Friday, presumably given the Trust's fixed date for the following Monday.
Something that I'm sure everybody would welcome, sir, to be frank.
But I can't say I'd be averse to that myself.
I can't, of course, make that motion to you because it would seem that we're trying not to sit. But I would have thought there is, I've now got the timetable, and I would have thought there is a real prospect of getting through those witnesses on Wednesday and Thursday.
Okay. We'll ask the office then to contact Mr. Harrison to see whether we can rearrange his evidence. Any comments from anyone else on all of that? Nope. Anything else we need to discuss before closing for the day then? Nope. Great. Okay, thanks all for that. We'll close now until 10 o'clock tomorrow morning.